Formal gavel bang. Thank you everybody for being here. Good morning. For the record, my name is Gabriela Coletta Zapata, District 1 City Councilor, and I'm the chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Environmental Justice, Resiliency, and Parks. Today is October 3rd, 2024. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and FiOS Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.ep@boston.gov and will be made a part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. If you're interested in testifying in person, and I'm happy to see so many folks here in the chamber, please add your name to the sign-up sheet near the entrance of the chamber. And if you are looking to testify virtually, please email our Central Staff Liaison, Shane Pack, at Shane, SHANE.pack, PAC, @boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on Docket 0190. Order for a hearing regarding implementing coastal resilience strategies for Boston's waterfront. This matter was sponsored by myself and Councilor John Fitzgerald and was referred to the committee on January 24th, 2024. Today I'm joined by my colleagues in order of arrival, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Murphy, and Councilor Fitzgerald. I'll go to them before my opening statement in the event that they wanted to help set the stage and provide that opening statement. So I'll go to my co-sponsor first, and then Councilor Flynn and Councilor Murphy. Councilor Fitzgerald, you have the floor.
Yeah, very quickly, thank you all for coming here. I've worked with many of you in some capacity before, so it's great to see a bunch of friends in front of us. Looking forward to this discussion. As you know, Dorchester has over 7+ miles of coastline, and so the resiliency is very important to District 3 and its economic impact in the future. And so I look forward to getting some questions and thoughts on what you guys see as the future of that today. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the important work you are doing, not only as Chair, but throughout the city as well. Thank you to the administration team for being here, the important work you are doing. I also want to recognize my friend Sarah from the Fort Point neighborhood and the work that you're doing here as well on sea level rising. Climate change and sea level rise is a threat. It's an issue that is impacting my district and other districts as well. Since I represent part of the Wharf District in South Boston Waterfront, the Fort Point area. As we have seen recently in the Wharf District, we are already affected by flooding and climate change. We saw the effect of sea level rise during the storms in years past and recently, where the floods shut down sections of the neighborhood. Dumpsters were literally floating down the street. We need to take action, continue to take action, and I know you have, to make sure that we are prepared. At the local level, there has been funding that the City of Boston has allocated into the recent budgets related to infrastructure to deal with this in Fort Point and in the South Boston waterfront. I continue to work with my colleagues and elected officials to have discussions and to learn more and to work with developers along the waterfront and the BPDA regarding resiliency measures associated with sea level rise. So I'm glad the Wharf District Council is actively focused on this issue, as they have been for many years, and I've learned a lot from the Wharf District Council. They are engaging, they're welcoming, and they're providing excellent information to residents. I'm here to learn more about this draft report and see how the city and the City Council can be a partner in helping the Wharf District in other neighborhoods across the city. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for your work on this as well, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the panelists who I'm looking forward to hearing from, but more importantly, all the neighbors and, like Councilor Flynn mentioned, the Wharf District Council and others who are here. I'm an at-large city councilor, so I know I do live in District 3. I, for my whole life, have been driving from, Neponset up Morrissey Boulevard, oftentimes stopped when I was trying to drop my, sons off at high school or We know that the impacts are coming. We need to prepare for the inevitable. It's not if, we know it's when. And just want to highlight that many of you here, or if all of you, have already been doing a lot of work, have been, some of you even spending a lot of your own money investing on how do we save your neighborhood. But to uplift that, you know, protecting our historic and treasured waterfront is vital and important for all the residents of the city of Boston. So if you live in Hyde Park, West Roxbury, you know, not right along the coast, that it affects you also. So I'm here to listen and find out how to be more of an ally in supporting whatever we can do as a city and supporting those private entities who are also pushing for great change to save our city. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. We did receive an absence letter from my colleague Liz Brereton, and then also an absence letter from Councilor Pepin. So just want to respect that and get through that administrative issue. In terms of my opening statements, I will, you know, I could speak at length on this, and so I will resist the urge to talk forever. I did have an opening statement that I think helps frame the conversation and level sets for all of us. So just first and foremost, thank you so much for being here today, for taking time out of your day to be involved in this timely conversation. Unfortunately, we are coming off the heels of a devastating reminder of why we must approach this conversation with urgency. The South in Appalachia is reeling from Hurricane Helene. Her historic storm severity, storm surge, and inland flooding has washed away entire towns with significant loss of life. So we extend our deepest sympathy to our southern neighbors during this difficult time and thank FEMA officials for their efforts to recover as they are ongoing. As city councilors, we are the closest level of government to the people, and so many of us hear from our constituents as we're at the grocery store or on the train about what we're doing on any given topic. I had a resident approach me in the cereal aisle this past Sunday to ask what the city is doing to protect us when, not if, this were to happen to Boston. Boston is experiencing the effects of climate change on a daily basis. We're witnessing stronger storms, higher frequency of coastal flooding, and hotter days. These climate change-related events threaten our communities, open spaces, infrastructure, and buildings. Sea level rise and storm surge due to climate change is the defining issue of our time, and it seeks to displace thousands in vulnerable areas. My district is very much a coastal district. I don't know if I have the most coastline. I think that goes to Councilor Flynn. We might have to figure that out at some point. But just some context for those listening in. This was my maiden speech, just because this will impact my district quite a bit. I believe we will be hit first and worst, in addition to Councilor Flynn's district and Councilor Fitzgerald's district. It's been about 2 years since we held that hearing with then Chief Mariama White-Hammond and then Chief Jameson, where we all agreed that we had to move beyond a parcel by parcel approach to climate resiliency, to fortify our coastline, to meet the sea, and protect the thousands of residents and businesses that stand to be displaced if we didn't act with urgency. In that hearing, we identified the need to break down barriers of implementation of project recommendations from Climate Ready Boston and identified funding sources as an obstacle to tackling what folks called Boston's next big dig. In subsequent working sessions, we identified next steps on behalf of the city as working towards better coordination within city departments, as well as better collaboration with state and federal partners. There was a discussion for a need of the Office of the Waterfront, or Office of Climate Resilience, or one person to solely oversee all waterfront planning and implementation work at the city level. Fast forward to today, I'm thrilled to say after 2.5 years, there was a recent announcement of the creation of Office of Climate Resilience under the leadership and restructuring of now Chief Climate Officer Brian Sweat. And a friend to many and not a stranger to us, Chris Osgood, is leading that office, and we're so thrilled about that and look forward to hearing about your work. So that is the goal of this working session, is to provide an opportunity for us and the public to learn more about the establishment of this new office under your leadership, emphasizing the need for cohesive departmental efforts in addressing coastal and stormwater challenges. And it'll also provide an opportunity for us to discuss emergency preparedness plans and resources in the event of a hurricane or similar climate emergency situation. Then we'll go to our fabulous nonprofit and community-based organizations who are all here today. We have an all-star lineup following this panel, and then we'll go to public testimony. So just thank you all again for being here. I think what I'll do now is just introduce you all and then pass it over to your discretion. You do have a presentation prepared for us. So first we have Brian Sweat, who's the Chief Climate Officer, Chris Osgood, Senior Advisor, We have to change that. You're now the Director of Climate Resilience. Matthew Kearney, Deputy Chief of Emergency Management. Catherine McClandless, Senior Climate Resilience Project Manager. John Sullivan, who's the Chief Engineer of Boston Water and Sewer Commission. We did also invite Kate English, who is the Director of Green Infrastructure, but could not make it today. And then we also have Rich McGinnis, who is a longtime waterfront planner, is now the Director of, if you want to say that, I don't want to get it wrong.
Coastal Resilient Infrastructure Delivery.
Coastal Resilient Infrastructure Delivery.
With the City of Boston Planning Department.
Beautiful, and I apologize if I got any of that wrong. Please correct me. But now I will pass it over to you at your discretion who wants to go first. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Councilor Coletta Zapata. Thank you so much, Councilor Fitzgerald, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Murphy. Really appreciate not just your interest, but your support, your partnership, your leadership on this issue. And as you said, Councilor Coletta Zapata, we have an all-star set of stakeholders, partners, and advocates that are in this room. And I think really reflects the fact that in order for us to address this urgent issue, it is going to be an all-of-city effort. City council, city organizations to be able to do this work. Over the next 15 to 20 minutes, we are going to walk through a little bit of the broad context. To your point, a deeper dive into the Office of Climate Resilience itself, our strategies for coastal resilience, and to do that, we have from left to right, so the folks in the room are aware, and some of the folks who are in the audience. Rich McGinnis, our Deputy Director of Climate and Coastal Resilience Infrastructure Delivery, and two members of his team are here, Sabit Nasir and Ben Matuseau. We have John Sullivan from the Boston Water and Sewer Commission, the Chief Engineer, and over my shoulder, Henry Vitale, the Executive Director of the Boston Water and Sewer Commission, our Chief Climate Officer, Brian Sweat, Kat McCandless, our Senior Project Manager for Climate Resilience, also joined by Naomi Rodriguez from the team, and Matt Kearney, our Deputy Chief of the Office of Emergency Management. So I'll turn it first over to Brian. We'll dive into the context, get into the office, talk about the projects, and really look forward to the questions, the conversation, the ideas that come up in the testimony to follow.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for your remarks, Chair, on setting the table. I think hopefully we'll have a great conversation about the progress we've made since your first hearing. I think what I heard, one is a city organization that is fit for purpose to meet this moment, and I think we have obviously the Office of Climate Resilience, but you're seeing a great deal of partnership amongst the cabinet and amongst other cabinet chiefs and other cabinets in delivering, both framing and delivering, and that was one of the priorities when I was entering for the mayor, is to say let's organize ourselves to make sure we have an all-of-government approach, but they're organized to deliver on what is the existential threat to Boston this century, right? And if we don't solve this, everything else becomes a whole lot harder. So I think excited to talk more about that. You mentioned partnerships, that you're going to hear that emphasis throughout our presentation and conversations. This inherently is a public partnership. It's both within City Hall, but as folks in this room know, the vast majority of our coastline is not owned by the city. It is private sector, it is the state, and some federal government. So inherently, this is going to have to be a public-public partnership, also public-private sector, and then, as was mentioned, we have some phenomenal NGOs that have been spending years working on this, and having that partnership of both what are the strategies and plans we should be developing, but then supporting implementation, because it is going to require a great deal of buy-in from our residential communities, from our business communities, to be able to make the change necessary on our waterfront going forward. And then lastly, I think you guys will be excited to hear some of our progress on identifying funding and pursuing funding to begin the work and start those projects. And the last couple of years have been some really important projects that we've been directly in control of in the city that are now spurring attention, as well as big picture funding, progress with the Army Corps and others. So with that, just to sort of frame how we think about climate resilience and the broader climate priorities, I would just touch on sort of these are the four pillars of the administration at the moment. One, all of our work is really centered on climate justice. And for us, that means both recognizing that we need to set the table correctly in terms of hearing from all of our partners, all of our neighborhoods, but in particular, our environmental justice communities, our low-income and minority communities in Boston, that from a coastal resilience perspective are disproportionately impacted and disproportionately vulnerable. So all of our work has to address injustice, and it brings both a sense of desire to set the table correctly as well as an urgency to bring solutions, because injustice that is left unaddressed is just further injustice. And it sits within that context of decarbonization and energy transition. We're finding more things at that star of making sure that our energy grid is resilient to events like coastal storms, and that we're doing this in a way that also sets ourselves up to be decarbonized. So briefly, in terms of setting the table on climate risk and plans, in terms of where we are at with the risks themselves, obviously the big four climate risks we're seeing that are making these storms worse and coastal resilience worse. One is extreme temperatures. We're seeing extreme heat waves. We're also seeing cold snaps in the middle of the winter when the polar vortex is upon us in New England and in Boston. That's contributing to heat waves and droughts in Boston. We had 2 extreme heat waves this summer. Unfortunately, we're able to respond fairly quickly with remote cooling centers and bringing cooling apparatus and emergency response. That takes a lot of planning and effort to do that. Extreme precipitation, we've seen these flooding events, and as folks have, and as you noted, Chair, the horrible hurricane that hit Florida, the most danger to loss of life was actually the volume of rain in the mountains of Western Carolina. It was not the winds on the shoreline, and we're seeing more extreme precipitation events that are hard to handle. And excited to partner with Boston Water and Sewer Commission and others on how we do that in Boston. Sea level rise is making it harder and worse, so that the average storm is more dangerous and more challenging, and that's contributing to stormwater flooding. And then coastal storms themselves are getting larger and they are getting stronger. And the size of these storms mean that broader swaths are impacted, and it challenges the emergency responsibility when the impacted area is so large that there is less to call on in terms of emergency support from places that aren't hit. So that's sort of the quad of climate challenges in front of us that are exacerbating storms going forward. So a little bit of history for folks, just to set the table. And I happened to be in City Hall during my first tour when Sandy was the near miss that it was. And just to remind folks, it was not a near miss by a couple hundred miles. It was a near miss by a few hours. So Sandy was so large, it was almost 1,000 miles across at the outset in the Gulf, that when it hit in New York, if it had hit at our high tide 5 hours earlier, we would have had a 1% storm event. So we would have extensive flooding in all of the districts that are represented by the city councilors here today. The picture on the right is the flooding we did have, and so that was at a relatively low tide. That was the volume of water that this storm hit. In subsequent years, we've missed 100-year storm events at least a half dozen times by hours, right? So it is definitely a when, not an if. We are at risk to these types of storms hitting us. This is, an important map and picture. I won't dwell too much time on this, but this is the colored areas are the areas that in a 1% storm are the areas where we would expect floodwater. So this allows us to sort of reiterate one of the things that makes Boston so at risk to coastal flooding is that 1/6 of the land of Boston is actually man-made filled tidelands. And this was built at a time where the sea levels were lower, where there wasn't an anticipation of them increasing. And because of that, significant areas of residential density, commercial density of our downtown, significant infrastructure are at risk to flooding. So for us, one of the takeaways for us in the city and in the administration is that this is not solely a coastal issue, and it's not an issue where we can say, oh, we'll just step back a block, right? And the land is higher a block away. This is an area where we're protecting our coast to protect our inland risk, because this is not the opportunity to sort of get higher up. And we've experienced flooding since 2012 regularly, both from storm events and folks may remember it was 2 weekends ago our seasonal high tide. On the pictures and stories of people walking around the chart house, knee deep in water, and that's sunny day flooding. That's just a predicted seasonal high tide. Our winter events to exacerbate the challenge we have in Boston, we anticipate flooding events more often in the wintertime based on the shape of our harbor and where we're located. That makes it harder in terms of drainage because that is the time when our stormwater system is most impacted by snow and ice. And so that tends to exacerbate the challenges. And these are just a few pictures of recent storms that had significant impact on people's way of life. So we have taken advantage of the opportunity of the near miss and the good fortune of the near miss of Sandy to not wait. And I'm really proud of the work that Boston has done without being directly impacted by a storm to plan for the future and to make sure we are getting better prepared. So this is a sampling. All of these are public of climate resilience planning efforts that the city has done since 2012. And we are one of the few cities in the country that has mapped out climate resilience planning options for all 47 miles of our shoreline. So we know some options and what success is. One of the challenges, again, we have in Boston is that we only directly own and control 16% of that shoreline. So we have to work with the private sector and work with the state to engage with them on what those solutions are. But we've mapped that out, and we have really good science and really good predictions and targeting where we need to go as a city. And we have begun the work, right? And I know there's been significant interest in saying, okay, yes, we have to spend time planning to know what success looks like and to have the right design parameters on this work, but we've begun the projects. Folks, I'll just take a quick sampling of these. Folks have been to the phenomenal Langone Park. If you're sitting on those benches, you may not realize you're sitting on part of the City of Boston's coastal resilience infrastructure and closing a critical pathway on the north end. Those benches, the pedestrian access to those benches can be closed with an aquafence type approach in inclement in a storm event, and actually protect the shoreline behind it. Work like Nuvian Square and putting in green infrastructure means that there's less stormwater that our gray infrastructure needs to maintain in a storm event or deal with in a storm event, and then major projects like our Greenway deployable. And hopefully folks got to participate or see the news coverage on the nation's first citywide deployables day in Boston last Friday. The aquafence that we put up at the East Boston Greenway is an example of us being able to close an existing flood path that has significant challenges for the communities behind it. And then, I'd highlight, and this to me still is a surprise, but we're the only city we're aware of that has coastal flood resilience overlay district in our zoning looking out to a future storm event. So every building, every major building permit that's pulled in the city of Boston that is in our projected floodplain, and we've defined that as 2070, 40 inches of sea level rise, and the 1% storm that happens at that time, has to be built for that storm, has to be built to be resilient to that storm. And the rationale there is that our major buildings need to be resilient and useful and functioning for their full useful life. And if we know that the environmental conditions are changing, that these buildings are going to have to thrive in, they should design for the end of that environmental condition. As far as we know, we're the only city in the country that's ordained this in zoning. There are many cities that have guidelines that start the conversation. In Boston, we don't want major developments in our flood zones and in our flood districts that aren't prepared. And so this is a requirement for major projects. And with that, it's my pleasure to, as you noted, and you had been talking about this for a number of years, one of the things that the mayor and I were really excited about is creating a centralized leadership structure to deal with climate resilience writ large, and coastal resilience being one of those priorities with the creation of an Office of Climate Resilience. So I'll turn it over to its director, Chris Austin.
Thank you so much, Chief Sweat. So as the Chief noted, there are three broad climate risks that we are focused on. One is coastal flooding, which is obviously the focus of today's hearing. We are also focused on extreme heat and increased stormwater. And as the Chief outlined, there's significant work, projects, plans, policies which have already been put in place to address these risks. Just to talk briefly about the coastal flooding risk, as Councilor Flynn noted in his opening comments, we are a city which is seeing some degree of sunny day flooding in some places. It was just 2 Friday and Saturdays ago. I'm looking to the audience to confirm that the Stone Living Lab did an event out at the end of Long Wharf in recognition that during King Tides, that end of Long Wharf is seeing sunny day flooding. It's flooding in our city, there, in places in East Boston, in other places along our coastline, where there's inundation even without a major storm coming. And we are a city that is looking at, between the beginning of this century and the 2070s, about 40 inches of sea level rise. So this is a significant amount of work which we need to be doing to make sure that people are safe and our neighborhoods are thriving going forward. The good news is that there is a tremendous amount of work already within the administration. As Chief Sweat mentioned, the interest here with the Office of Climate Resilience is to make sure that we are doing three things. One, internally making sure that we are coordinated and aligned on this work itself. That we, as a city, are supporting the great efforts by the Office of Emergency Management, by our Streets Cabinet, by our Planning Department, by our Boston Water and Sewer Commission, to be able to respond to these risks. Second, to make sure that for everybody who is here, every advocate, every partner, every counselor, every constituent, that there is a place that is where you can go and understand what the city's plans are, what our progress is against those plans, and how to get engaged as a partner. You can see some of that content already at boston.gov/climate resilience, which is a sort of central hub for the city's work online, and happy to go to any community meeting and talk more about this in greater depth. And the third element of the office is really to lead a set of key projects. Part of that is around work in coastal resilience, part of that is around extreme heat, and part of that is work to ensure that we have the capacity to be able to implement projects at the speed that we need. To talk briefly about the strategy on coastal flooding before turning over to Matt and Kat and John to dive more specifically into it, our coastal flooding strategy essentially looks at three different approaches that are happening at the same time, but focused on different time horizons. The first is really a set of work focused on today's storms with great leadership and coordination by our Office of Emergency Management. This is making sure that we have the plans in place and that we are preparing ourselves and our constituents with what they need in advance of a storm, through a storm, and after one. The second set of work, which Kat will talk more about, is work we are doing to address the near-term flood paths that exist in the city of Boston. These are places which all of us know well, places that have seen flooding already, and that, as Chief Sweat showed on an earlier slide, that we would expect to see a degree of inundation in a major storm both this decade and next. And then the third strategy that we are focused on, and I'll touch briefly on this at the end, is a collaboration with the Army Corps of Engineers to really look at work over the course of really the next decade and time after that, to provide longer-term resilience protection for all 47 miles of Boston's coastline. So I'll turn it over to our Deputy Chief of the Office of Emergency Management, Matt Carney, who will talk about our work in this first strategy.
Awesome, thank you. So the Office of Emergency Management and the Office of Climate Resilience are working hand in hand to ensure that Boston's emergency response is robust and adaptable to the changing climate landscape. We meet and regularly share data and insights from climate modeling and the long-term resilience planning efforts to help inform real-time response and update protocols. And we can really boil that down to three main focus areas. So we have public education, so that's our work in the public, ensuring that through awareness campaigns, workshops, and informational materials that we produce are getting into the hands of residents and making sure that they understand their risks and some of the steps that they can take to stay safe during emergencies, and also the resources available to them made by the city. We also do a lot of operational planning, so creating detailed and actionable plans for citywide operations to respond to extreme events and other hazards. Our goal there is really just to ensure that city departments are well coordinated and prepared in the event of some of these extreme weather events. And then the final bucket being that citywide coordination. So our role is really bringing everyone together, convening folks to make all departments aware of what those risks are in the event of an extreme weather event or whatever that hazard may be, and facilitate that collaboration across the various city departments to help streamline the response to climate-focused emergencies. We're really focused in that area on the real-time communication and resource sharing to maximize effectiveness during a crisis. Next slide. And this slide just shows kind of a quick snapshot at the robust amount of public information material that our office has put together. So what you're seeing here are kind of one-sheeters based on the various hazards and programs available to residents. These are also done in presentation format, so if we're going and speaking at community events or neighborhood associations, as well as public information graphics that we can push out via social media as needed. And then just to kind of dive a little bit further into the operational coordination piece, there's just a National Weather Service product there on the left, and then one of our dashboards that we utilize in our Emergency Operations Center. And the goal there is really just how are we taking in data that's coming to us from a whole host of different agencies and sources, and boiling it down to, what does this mean for our departments? What does this mean for our residents? And getting really specific in the neighborhood vulnerabilities and ensuring that we have the adequate resources at hand to respond to those. Some of this we utilize Office of Climate Resilience's flood pathways and risk timing to help enhance our response times and understand where those vulnerable neighborhoods are. I know during Deployables Day, we looked at the one over in East Boston. That's something that in concert with the Office of Emergency Management, we would help make the call on when that would need to go up. And then the collaboration here enhances the city's ability to respond swiftly to emergencies while supporting the Office of Climate Resiliency's work on transforming the city's coastline for the long-term projection. And now I'll turn it over to Kat to talk a little bit more about the resilience projects.
Thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here with you all today. So I'm going to talk a bit about the planning work that we've done and the implementation efforts that we have been working on since the plans have been completed. So building off of the 2016 Climate Ready Boston report, which was the citywide vulnerability assessment, staff in the Environment Department under the Climate Ready Boston team, now part of the Office of Climate Resilience, led the development of neighborhood-level coastal resilience plans for each of Boston's 5 coastal communities. And so these plans laid the groundwork for the work that we're now taking to build the projects in critical areas that are at risk of coastal flooding and sea level rise today and in the future. In these plans, we looked at multiple types of coastal flood risk and the cumulative impact of these together. So speaking about sea level rise, storm surge, and wave action and erosion. And we also looked at how flooding enters a community, whether that is what we call fringe flooding, meaning it is isolated along the waterfront, or flood pathways, which have been mentioned a few times, which is when water enters through low-lying sections of the waterfront and can reach inland parts of the city that are typically not designed to withstand the impacts of flooding. In each of these plans, we have essentially had a set of goals and objectives that have been presented in the plans. So the first is analyzing the flood risk in a given location and understanding the timing of that flood risk and how that evolves between now and the next 50 years. We've done significant community and stakeholder engagement with community members, nonprofit partners, other levels of government, and the private sector to identify where there are key priorities and opportunities and constraints and how we can meet multiple objectives with these projects. We then developed conceptual coastal resilience solutions that would provide multiple benefits, but at its core, prevent flooding from impacting these communities. Then in each plan, it outlines a implementation roadmap that essentially shows the time between now and in 2070 when these different strategies need to be implemented based on the urgency of flood risk and how that changes over time, and next steps for advancing each project in all of these neighborhoods. As has been said, planning is really the first step in a series of actions to bring these concepts into construction. So we've finished planning and we have been working over several years now to advance these priority projects into the next stages of design and engineering and permitting, and even some into construction. So this slide highlights the projects that we are actively working on across the city to design and permit these projects to block key flood paths that have been identified in our plans. These projects are predominantly being led by 3 city departments, the Parks and Recreation Department, the Planning Department, and the Office of Climate Resilience. It's also been noted that most of the Boston coastline is not owned by the city of Boston, so a lot of the work that we're doing is to engage with our partners in the private sector and at the state and federal level of government to bring these projects that are priorities within our municipality into reality. So I'm going to move quickly through these next few slides just for the purposes of time, but want to highlight just the range of projects that we are doing across each neighborhood. So in Dorchester, we have been working on the design of Tinian Beach and partnering with the state on the redesign of Morrissey Boulevard. In 2022, the Parks Department reopened McConnell Park that had resilience features embedded into the park's design. In South Boston, we're really kind of spanning South Boston and Dorchester. We've been working on the design of Moakley Park and Moakley Park connectors, which are the areas adjacent to the park itself, as well as design and engineering work for the 4-Point Channel and the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. In 2019, the Parks Department also opened Martin's Park in the Seaport, which similarly had resilience features embedded into the play structures within the park. In the downtown and North End, we're currently working on the design of Long Wharf, which has been noted as being one of the lowest elevations in the city. And in 2020, the Parks Department reopened Langland Park and Popolo Playground, which is a really great example of a project that has worked with the Harbor Walk to prevent flooding, but also create beautiful public space for people to enjoy. The Planning Department will soon be launching a design and engineering project for the Charlestown Navy Yard, building off of the work of the planning project that finished in 2022. And the Parks Department has just recently finished permitting Ryan Playground and is preparing to go out to bid for construction for the project soon. And then in East Boston, we welcomed Pierce Park Phase 2 by Massport in 2023, so just last year. And we are actively working on the design of Lewis Mall and Carlton Wharf, Border Street, and Bennington Street and Fredericks Park, which spans the boundaries of Boston and the city of Revere. So to wrap up, these plans and projects are being, advanced to create a waterfront that reduces coastal flood risk, but that also enhances connectivity, accessibility, recreation, and ecological health around the city, so that people are protected during storms, but are also able to enjoy Boston's waterfront on the days when the sun is still shining. And with that, I will pass it over to John.
Thank you, and good morning. The Boston Water Sewer has been working in conjunction with the city on all this coastal resilience projects. But what you need to understand, and this little chart may help, the city will build the barriers to keep the ocean from coming in on us. But that doesn't allow us to discharge the water, which discharges by gravity through most of the city. It's by gravity. With a high tide, we can't discharge. And this little diagram depicts if the flood barrier, which is shown on the right-hand side, is in place with a super high tide, why the water can't flow by gravity out into the ocean. There are areas, if you look on the left-hand side, that will be high enough that by simply being the higher elevation, the water can flow, but the other two, water will be stored. So that's the problem we're facing, is trying to identify if there's a high tide and the barriers are in place, how do we move this water? The simple answer for most people is pump it. Well, you have 230 outfalls, and so you can't build 230 pump stations. Building some of these pump stations are enormously large to take this kind of rainfall. And another just fun fact is we don't own any land. So we need to find places to do it. So we decided to put out a conceptual plan looking at what would have to happen if all the barriers were in place and we had to build pump stations or storage. Storage is another great spot to do it. This is part of our study. On the right-hand side, we show the areas that are vulnerable to our particular outfalls. You can see all the outfalls, the little dots. And these are all places that we'd have to pump or find a way to get the water out of the city. 75% of the city is protected from the coastal problems, but not from increased rainfall problems. But we just studied in the first phase was the coastal. What will we do on the coast? That's the 25%. And we have come up with the concepts in a study showing where we could build things, where we could use storage. One of the key things the commission does is we don't want to have energy-intensive pumps. If there's a way for us to store the water, wait for the next low tide, and let gravity do its work, that's what we want to do. That was a key focus as we go forward. Also, anything pumping is mechanical. Anything mechanical can fail. Gravity doesn't fail us. So if we can do anything with gravity, that's where we want to be. In the study, you'll see one of the biggest concepts we have is using the Fort Point Channel. It's already built. It's a natural tank at low tide. It can hold 100 million gallons of water in the Fort Point Channel if we can build a storm surge barrier down by the Northern Avenue Bridge. This concept here is we were tying into both federal pieces of property outside the bridge section. We've also studied closely how we could combine a flood barrier with a new bridge, all in one, because these things won't be used that often. These will be used during extreme events. The channel will operate as it does today. There'll be no changes. The only change would be is when a big storm is coming, at low tide, we would shut these gates, and the Fort Point Channel would act kind of like what a dry dock looks like. It'd be empty, as it is every day at low tide. We can discharge our 10-year storm event with no pumping into that channel for 10% of the city. We protect a huge area. In South Boston, downtown, we protect the Ted Williams Tunnel. We protect the Mass Turnpike. We protect Amtrak. And so you got to remember, everything we do, we got to protect these things. So if we do get a storm bigger than what we can handle, we need to be able to recover. And that's one of the other concepts the commission uses at all times. This barrier would have pumps in it. So as this bathtub is filling up, we'd be able to turn on pumps and pump against the tide. In the report, we show a bunch of concepts. So about 70% of the area that we need to protect, we took a quick conceptual study. We were looking for spots, where could we do something, how big it would have to be. And this was to engage the public and all entities that might be looking to build somewhere. These were our suggestions, and these are concepts. Now, some people have been very upset with the concepts of what we might do in a park. Again, these things would be used once every couple of years, and it would be to save the residents from flooding by temporarily storing water in places that the city or the state may own. And then we would restore it. If they we had to do a cleanup, we could go and do a cleanup afterwards. The other key one is the Dorchester Bay Basin, which ironically holds at low tide 100 billion gallons of water. And we would have a concept that the highlands behind Dorchester could flow by gravity, as I showed on the first slide. Low-lying areas could flow into Dorchester Bay Basin. Excuse me. Finally, the last slide I wanted to show you is we keep on a website a spot called the Resilience Hub. And that's a one-stop shopping for anyone that wants to look at our concepts, but they can also take a look, and there's a link to Climate Ready Boston. So Climate Ready Boston and all the activities the city's been doing can be clicked on. You can look at our discharge analysis. We have flood modeling, so you can look in your particular neighborhood under any storms you predict. You want to take a storm, a hurricane coming in, you want to look at a tropical storm, a thunderstorm. You can input those, and it'll show you how deep the water would be in your neighborhood. And then we have the full report, access to the full report. So that's available either on bwsc.org by putting in coastal flooding, or we have a direct link to it, bwscstormviewer.com. And we haven't stopped there. So that's the first phase that we did. We're awaiting the Army Corps of Engineers evaluation of everything we've done. A couple of key points. In the late 1990s, after our devastating rainfall events in '96, we installed 10 rain gauges in the city of Boston. Our rain gauges measure water in 5-minute increments. The normal one is 15, but the rainfall intensity in 5 minutes could be enough to cause flooding. And if you were only measuring in 15 minutes, you wouldn't understand what happened. That is updated on a daily basis, and we're just doing that data collection throughout the city. We have installed 60 sensors in our sewers, and we're going to move that to 120 sensors. What that does is our sewers report to us each day how they feel. It shows us how much sewage or water, rainwater, is in each particular pipe, and we can compare that to our electronic computer models. Computer models are just a mathematical representation of what we think might happen. These sensors are telling us what is happening, and that will help us identify areas that will have additional flooding. We're completing a 2-year study on updating our computer models, both the storm drain and that. The reason for that is we're upgrading our infrastructure. In South Boston, we're about 50% through changing the combined sewer pipes over to new separate systems and sanitary systems. We're about to embark on one in East Boston to complete the separation of East Boston. That's a $150 million project over the next 7 years. We'll renew the infrastructure there. And then we'll have to update our models again, because the models only explain what's going on with the physical pipes we have. We have a phase 4 coming out. It's coming, phase 2 rather, on this Resilience Hub issue. In January, we intend to review what we did already on the coastal, finish the other 30% that we didn't do up at the beginning, and we're going to do the inland flooding. If you noticed in Asheville, the major problem they had there, 1,200 feet above sea level, they got wiped out because the amount of rain hitting the rain. You don't need tidal problems, you don't need river problems, it's just the volume of rainfall. We can't handle 14 inches of rain. We just can't. Our design storm is a 10-year design storm. We believe we can take 6 inches of rain over 24 hours with no problems, but there's always localized problems. When we get through with this study, and the study will take us about 2 years, you'll be able to know where it might flood inland as well as the coast, and we will start then developing designs to protect it, where we can store water. We have concepts of storing water in the George Wright Golf Course, in the Arboretum. Places that are public entities will keep it out of the cellars till the storm passes and we can release the water. So these are all ongoing designs that we have right now. In addition, since 1990, we've been making everyone building a new building in the city of Boston has to hold the first inch to inch and a quarter of rainfall. So that first inch and a quarter is infiltrating into the ground as it continues to rain. Now that's not going to save us on 14 inches, but it lets us continue to prepare as these storms begin, as we outline where we need to go. All the data we will have will also inform emergency management, what streets may be flooded, where EMS, fire, police need to be diverted if there's going to be flooding. And we have all types of predictive models with the data, and we intend to use artificial intelligence to help us understand the what-if scenarios on all of this. So that's what I had as a quick, and I'm prepared to answer all of your questions. And I live in District 3.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. So before passing it back to Chief Sweat to close us out, I wanted to just touch on the third of our 3 major coastal resilience strategies. So Matt, again, talked about our first one, which is about how we respond to some of the near-term storms that we are experiencing. Kat talked about the transformation of our coastline, particularly in those places where we are seeing flooding now or would expect flooding later this decade or into the early 2030s. And with a series of designs to think about Councilor Murphy's opening comments that are not only sort of reducing the risk, but making sure that this waterfront that we treasure remains something which sort of is a great asset for the city of Boston through designs like what Brian mentioned at the beginning, Langone Popolo Park, and the sort of coordination, as John touched on, to make sure that as we do this work along our coast, we're also being mindful of how we can address stormwater and heat-related issues as well. Our third principal strategy is the long-term collaboration with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers brings a significant amount of experience, expertise, and federal financing to be able to do larger-scale coastal resilience infrastructure projects. We are right now in the midst of what's called a coastal storm risk management feasibility study. This is a 6-year study that will conclude in the spring of 2028. Over the previous few years, they have been developing an analysis of the city of Boston to understand essentially the risk to our city if we do not take steps to be able to protect people in our neighborhoods going forward. Over the next 3 years, there's going to be a number of community conversations about what some of this longer-term infrastructure could look like. That will result in a report to Congress in the spring of 2028, and then unlock our ability to collaborate with the Army Corps of Engineers on projects in the 2030s and beyond. So I will turn it over to Chief Sweat and then turn it over to all of you. Look forward to your questions, comments, and the testimony from our partners.
Great, and I just add part of the reason we had a great visit from the general from the Army Corps this summer that's overseeing the study. This is one of the few major studies that's happening nationally. And part of their excitement about working with us is how ready the Boston community is. And by Boston community, I mean not only city government, but our state and federal partners, as well as our nonprofits and our private sector community, to do the work. And obviously the federal government wants to fund projects that the community is behind and all of the stakeholders that are impacted are behind. So the work, Councilor Flynn, that you mentioned from the Wharf District Council, the work of other neighborhood groups, bringing public and private sector owners of our waterfront together to say this is our preferred solution is really important to keep this moving forward. And those become fund-ready, shovel-ready projects that we can then move forward with. So that relationship is great. The analogy I use for the task in front of us, and some of us in this room have been around long enough to remember, is that until the mid '80s, late 1980s, the Boston Harbor wasn't something that people came to Boston to seek out access to, because it was one of the most polluted harbors in the country. And at that point in time, there were questions about, do we move forward with embracing our waterfront, or are we actually, is the development pulse of the city further away from our waterfront? And we were told it couldn't be done. We were told, one, it was technologically going to be very challenging to clean up the Boston Harbor. 2, it was going to break the bank. There was no way, that it could be afforded. We've done this before, right? And this is, so in my mind, the work of the MWRA and the creation of a new government structure, and you can see that we're creating our own new governance structure here, the phenomenal work of cleaning up the harbor. There are very few folks in Boston, and certainly folks who've been born in the last 30 years, that can't imagine coming to the waterfront. And the harbor now, instead of being a negative attraction, is a magnet for business in Boston and a magnet for enjoyment, and we're a city that is embracing its water in ways that honestly people would not have dreamed of in the late 1970s and 80s that we'd have this. Order of magnitude, the Deer Island and the MWRA cleanup costs between between $4 and $6 billion in today's dollars, unleashed between $40 and $100 billion in economic assets and value. So a phenomenal ROI for that cleanup, let alone the vitality and life of the city going forward. So we can do this again, right? And for me, this is the Boston Harbor cleanup take 2. I'm really excited to be here and talk about progress. We will be here for the next 20 years, right? Talking about progress to deliver a Boston waterfront that is protected, that is enjoyable, to protect this phenomenal asset that is now the pulse, the beating heart of the city, is our access to that waterfront and all the enjoyment and economic vitality and activity that it provides. So we've done this before. This is not an insurmountable problem. This will be, in the B's in terms of how we fix it. This will cost us billions of dollars to do this over the next 25 or 30 years, but we've proven we can do the big things before again. It didn't break the bank, right? We have very reasonable water rates and water and sewer rates. We know how to look at these over time to say how do we amortize those costs, how to do it fairly. But I am excited about the challenge and optimistic. So with that, I think we will open for questions.
Thank you so much, Chief. Thank you all so much for your testimony and your work. I love a good so what call to action for all of us and basically challenging us and saying that we've been here before, we can do it again if we all lean in and work together. So appreciate your take on that. I'll go to my colleagues before my questions. I'll first go to the co-sponsor, Councilor Fitzgerald, for any questions you may have. And I think we'll be very lax with timing in this hearing. So
Great.
Take as much time as you need.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. This job is great because you get to come every day and learn so much about what goes into making this city. And this is the stuff that, right, you don't really hear about in school growing up and things like that. And just, John, even you talking about just using gravity and the things that every day we take for granted, but it is so important for our city. So it's a pleasure to be here talking about today. Overall, thinking of this district-wide waterfront approach and having to this coastal resiliency, and that it can't be done parcel by parcel, as Councilor Gabriela Zapata said. Yet given sometimes implementation can only happen when development occurs, or there is money issues at times of funding. How do we make this a united approach? Or I guess another way to ask is, how do we prioritize the need versus the opportunity to become more resilient, right? We know there might be areas that need it more, but right now there might be something over this way that is ready to go now. And so what is our approach to that?
Happy to start. Others, please feel free to add here. First, I think we are seeing right now, to exactly your point, how to go from projects that are parcel by parcel to projects that are across multiple parcels. And in order for us to be successful, that is the work we're going to have to do. And to think about 3 projects that Kat identified that I think are really illustrative of this and the sort of coordination we're going to need. One is the project at Bennington Street, which, in order for us to close that flood path, a flood path that impacts the Blue Line and a flood path that impacts Suffolk Downs, is about coordination between the City of Boston and the City of Revere. Further down the coastline is a major flood path at Border Street, a huge focus of work being led by Kat, a huge place of investment, thanks to the City Council, in order for us to address that flood path, which impacts the principal supermarket within East Boston, as well as the Blue Line, as well as sort of a thriving residential and commercial district. It's about collaboration across 8 property owners. And for us to do work just around the corner from that, to close a flood path at Lewis Street and Carlton Wharf, it's about collaboration between Massport and the City of Boston. Each of these sort of district scale projects that we are focused on is going to require a level of coordination across property owners and work which we are sort of making significant progress on, and I think there's a huge amount of interest and enthusiasm from property owners, government entities to be able to do this work. As we do this work, we are very focused, particularly with our funding right now, on pursuing those places or investing in those places where, if we fail to act, they will have the most consequence for people, their lives, their property. So that is why areas like Border Street, like Bennington Street, like the Lewis Street, Carlton Wharf work, like Tinian Beach, are top priorities for us in the city.
Yeah, just add, so to reiterate, one, we are taking a risk-based approach that is time-bound. So we're looking out at 20, 30 flood paths and saying, what needs to be protected the fastest? And moving forward with the ones that we directly have control of, which predominantly are city parks. Some of them are Boston planning parcels, as well as then just raising the collaborative pressure with the owners of ones that we don't own to say, you're part of our solution, how do we work with you? I do want to reiterate with folks, we appropriately leverage private sector development wherever possible for them to do their share, but we are not dependent on private sector development for the solutions that Boston's neighborhoods needs. So whereas the private sector controlling a parcel on the waterfront that is critical to the broader neighborhood, we are actively developing a plan B if that redevelopment does not happen in the time necessary to protect the neighborhood. So we're always looking at, okay, if that doesn't happen on the shoreline, is there something we do behind that private parcel, or is there another solution that we put into place if we lose faith that that timeline that the private sector development is moving forward with isn't fast enough? So we're always doing that when we're looking along our shoreline. And then secondly, I'd just say, the creation, obviously the most significant, new organizational structure over the summer is the creation of Boston Planning. And that was out of the mayor's drive to, solve a bunch of challenges, but one, embed climate resilience into every planning effort we're doing across the city to say this is foundational. This isn't something to be traded against for other, development priorities, is that every development we build not only has to be resilient into and of itself, but contributing to the overall city's resilience. And so that's just part of our ethos now.
And a final issue that we would be watching, Morrissey Boulevard is talking about a whole new design. One of our concepts is using gates at the Beeds Bridge so that we can control the water. All we need to do now, we don't need to build it now. We need to make sure that this was ever built won't prohibit us from building in the future. Now, if the particular foundation of that bridge is such that they want to build it with pointed edges, et cetera, we need flat edges, we will talk and discuss. We have 96-inch pipes that need to be laid down Morrissey Boulevard. They don't need to go in now. You can build them anytime in the future, so you don't spend the money and have a dead asset laying there. You just make sure the path is open. Make sure that nobody blocks that path. Make sure that you're not going to disrupt things. So we watch closely when they do development like that and make sure our concepts can fit in the future. And the future might just be 15, 20 years. Of course, the way Morrissey Boulevard's going, in 15, 20 years, we'll be doing it in conjunction with each other. But these are the things we need to watch closely now. Don't let anybody build something that prohibits you from taking action in 15, 20 years.
Thank you. And I didn't think there's a right answer to that question. It was more like philosophically, do we just, when an opportunity arises, maybe we do jump at it and things. I just didn't know if we're going in with a certain philosophy of how to approach it. So thank you for that answer. John, you actually led me into my next question, which is sort of about the Morrissey Boulevard redesign. And I know, Mr. Osgood, you and I serve on that commission, which is great. So I'm glad to make sure your expertise is in the room when we talk about that, because it'll be important to not only traffic, but the resiliency as well. But in the water and sewer, John, and thank you for being a District 3 constituent as always. I knew that, by the way, going in. So I'm going to try and give you softball questions here, but I do have to drill down. You talk about the bridges at the Beeds Bridge, right, on Malibu. And I understand the need to put the coastal resiliency up and closing those to be able to block it off and stuff. But there's also the issue of the water quality in the bay itself, right? And the runoff all the way down from Ronan Park and the highway and things like that, that if, we're one of the red flag beaches on that list every summer, Tinian and Malibu. And so to bring that amenity back to a place where people can actually visit and or cool off if they want to, given the rising temps, is closing off the bay for resiliency? Does that, how do we clean that out? Because I know that it has a very, under the Beeds Bridge is a very thin margin to actually flush out, and that's why the bay is as polluted as it is, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going outside my expertise here. But with the runoff and with no way to flush it out, that's why it is the way it is. Does closing it help, and is there a way to open it up? How do we clean it more?
So we would build gates. We would only close them when there's an enormous storm coming. So they would be open, I'd say 99% of the time. So the natural forces that work there today would continue to work. It has closed in. If you notice, a lot of sediment is underneath the bridges. There's 5 or 6 openings that are filled up with sand. But that just keeps an increased velocity, which is good, moving the sediment further out. The drainage that goes in there, I'd say good 90% of it is highway drainage. Boston Water Sewer bypasses, there's an outfall right at the Dorchester Yacht Club. You'll see it, a very large one. That's only used in extreme storms. So there's no flow out of that thing except in extreme storms. We actually discharge over by the Savin Hill Yacht Club into the larger Bay Area. So the pollution that you see inside that area of Malibu Beach isn't coming from Boston Water Sewer. Tinian's another story. That's another time we can talk about that one. Sure. But we're pursuing it. It's not. We pursue that every year. We rally around it. We find another illegal connection somewhere in the system. Someone tied in a new bathroom in their cellar. There's a broken pipe somewhere. and that's a constant ongoing thing. To clean up that bay, it's contaminated soil, at least according to the results of the yacht club itself. We don't have an answer to that, how we're going to clean that up. We're just looking at using the natural embayment for the one time the storm's going up. That has to be pursued further with, the yacht club's brought it up with the coastal dredging. They're doing dredging out there additionally. That's a bigger problem than this resilience issue that we're studying. We're studying when it rains hard, what do we do with it? And the key is keep it out of people's cellars. That's what we're trying to do.
In that, Councilor Coletta Zapata and I, a couple of weeks ago, we took a walk down Tinian and we spoke from folks from Port Norfolk and sort of their concerns. And they brought up this question, and I asked you because I'm sure it's being thought about, but in this specific instance, right, you have the doors at Beeds Bridge and you close it for the buildup of the water, but water's got to go somewhere, right? And so Port Norfolk, already susceptible to flooding, is going, that's great, you're going to save Morrissey from being flooded over, but guess what it's going to do? It's going to push the water down to Port Norfolk. And so in thinking about the sequencing of this stuff, how does that make sure people's homes are protected? And Matt, I got to follow up with what other issues are up there about how people can protect their homes in case of flooding and resiliency after this.
Us closing gates at the Beeds Bridge would have negligible effect on the level of seawater at Port Norfolk. We've already looked at that. We're talking, less than 1/4 of an inch. The ocean is an enormous place. If you just block off that water, a small blocking like, well, I know that wasn't a deep thought, but there's a lot of area that that water would back up on, and it would not impact Port Norfolk. We've spoken at length with the people at Port Norfolk. We've been down Port Norfolk. We've renewed all our infrastructure. We know it. Tinian is another issue of pollution. We're chasing it. And so the impact of the flooding won't hurt them.
Yeah.
That won't hurt them.
Just to add one thing, I apologize, Councilor. And with credit to the Planning Department, Rich McGinnis and his team, this particular issue was analyzed as part of the redesign for Tinian Beach, whether work at Tinian would have, how that would impact residents in Port Norfolk. Rich, I don't know if there's elements you want to talk to that.
Well, I just said that the ocean's infinite. The water's going to, come up no matter what occurs at different locations. But when we're analyzing Tinian Beach and other projects like Malibu, we'll have to do flood risk modeling and impacts to see, if we do something at one location, does it impact another neighborhood? But again, it's infinite ocean. It's going to come no matter what and hit all these areas that are low-lying.
Yeah. I guess the good thing here is I do believe many parts of Dorchester and along its coast are ripe for development right now with Bay City, with even the public-owned land of Morrissey Boulevard, and down at the end of Port Norfolk and other regions. So I think there'll be a lot of opportunity to see this sooner than later is the hope, and that'd be great. Matt, the follow-up for you is, for instance, if I'm talking to the folks at Port Norfolk and they're worried about flooding, whether or not there's a Beeds Bridge, if it's a negligible effect, they still get flooded anyway. What are some ways, and maybe, shout out the website or Instagram handle that folks could look up at, but what are some things that I could tell folks to do to make their homes resilient to coastal flooding, personally?
There we go. Thank you, Councilor. So on the city's website for emergency management, we have a page on flooding, and with that includes a whole list of just overall general preparedness tips for residents, but we also have a page in there for homeowners specifically. So it's under the, I'm trying to scroll to it, under related flood content, there's a building flood resiliency section, and it kind of dives into flood insurance, so understanding what affects homeowners' premiums, and then some of the resilience actions that they can take. So, elevating your home, raising the mechanicals within your basement, filling in your basement, installing flood vents. It kind of dives into a number of different actions that you can take as a homeowner, and then opens up some more information on the work the city's doing if they want to get more information on some of these programs and ways in which that they can kind of leverage or tap into them.
Great. What's the, did you say the Instagram handle? Just for anyone watching. I couldn't read it. I know it's in the, it's on this paper.
Oh,
here,
just for the Twitter's at Alert Boston is going to be
Alert
for
Boston.
the emergency management page, and that'll get you there. I'm not sure of it off the boston.gov/department/.
Thank you. I have other, okay.
If I could also highlight Councilor Fitzgerald, just because it was last Friday, Deployables Day. So in terms of things that homeowners can do right now, there are flood deployables at scale. So I don't want folks thinking this is just a solution for a big commercial building. You know, we had vendors out there that have solutions to, to block your front door, right, and put a flood barrier in the front door that buys you a couple of feet of, water protection to block windows. So the Deployables Day website is still up with all the vendors that were at the resource fair. Pictures of things that are happening. I don't know, Kat, if you want to go deeper into the website, but that'll be up for a while, and it's a central source for sort of things you can do right now.
Gotcha. Thank you. Deployables. That's
Yep.
what, yep. Gotcha.
Also, developed guidelines on how to adapt and retrofit every building typology in these future floodplains. So single-family homes, triple deckers, mid-rise, high rises. So in that source, if people are making investments in their home, they can go to these guiding principles and make, judgment calls on elevating their mechanicals or other things. So those are publicly available. And also you can look up where your property is located. Is it in a future floodplain? And then go to the guidelines for these retrofit suggestions.
Great, thank you. That'll end my questions. I just want to say, again, I've been working with a lot of you, coming on close to 20 years now, Rich and Chris and others. And so I know you guys have always been at the forefront of these conversations, and planning for this stuff is not something that happens overnight or even over a decade. It takes decades, right? And you guys have been on it for that long. So just a sincere appreciation, because I know when the time comes, and it will come, that the country and the world will look to Boston and say, wow, look how prepared they were. And we really should listen to them, as they should always. But so thank you for coming up with the ideas and really trying to get this implementation. I know it's not easy. Thank you very much.
Great questions, Councilor Fitzgerald, and well said, so thank you for that. I do want to just underscore this point, because I will circle back to it, about the costs associated with retrofits and adaptation for homeowners, and what that means, and how the City of Boston could assist with this, understanding that folks are barely making it, even if they are homeowners. So I will circle back to that. But for now, I will just say that we've been joined by Councilor at Large and Madam President Rusi Louis-Jean, and we also received an absence letter from Henry Santana. He did mention in this absence letter that earlier this year, he held an emergency management policy briefing. One of the topics we covered was hurricane and severe storm preparedness. So I just want to thank him for that and thank him for his absence letter. Councilor Flynn, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, thank you to the administration team that is here. I also had the opportunity to work with John, Rich, and Chris especially for many years, and I want to say thank you for your professionalism and work as well throughout the city. I also wanted to recognize Henry and the Water and Sewer team for always being there for the residents of Boston, especially during difficult times like a storm or a major incident. Water and Sewer is always providing the critical infrastructure support that we desperately need. So I want to say thank you to the men and women of the Boston Water and Sewer Commission. And Chief, you are right. I remember as a little kid in South Boston when we couldn't swim in the Boston Harbor. It was polluted. And in the mid-'80s, under Mayor Flynn and Governor Dukakis, and working with the federal government, they were able to get the federal money to clean up Boston Harbor. Major improvements. One have probably the nicest harbor now in the country, in my opinion. And a walkway, pathway that's accessible now to people with disabilities is also very important. I want to recognize my close friend Vivian Lee also for her work. Let me ask one couple questions, I guess. Wharf District Climate Resilience Model, advancing climate-ready design concept to engineering design, I believe is an excellent model. Not every neighborhood has that advantage, but how will the city work with other neighborhoods like South Boston to implement coastal resilience solutions in time, but also factoring in private property related issues.
I'm happy to start, and others please feel free to add. I think I agree that recognition of groups like the Wharf District for their proactive efforts is a very good thing to call out. There's a lot of work which is being done by the city to make sure that we can provide that same sort of district scale planning that is going to be necessary to address the risks of flood paths. And I think one of our principal examples of this right now is one I'll turn over to Kat in a moment to talk about is the work at Border Street in East Boston. I would also note that the Wharf District itself is one part of a broader flood path, and I appreciate the City Council supporting additional funding for us to expand a near-term plan centered on Long Wharf that will help protect the Wharf District, help protect sections of the North End, help support the long-term planning for the aquarium and great assets like Christopher Columbus Park to really make sure that we are putting in a design that addresses the near-term risk and is literally foundational for some of the longer-term transformation of our coastline that'll be necessary to protect our residents and our neighborhoods. But I'll turn it over to Kat, who can give a great example of the work at Border Street.
Oh, there we go. Thanks. So for the Resilient Border Street Waterfront project, this is a project that we initiated last fall and officially launched at the beginning of this year. This is an interesting project in that it is working across about 7 to 8 privately owned parcels along the waterfront in East Boston, where we know that there is a very large flood pathway that will not just put the residents and the homeowners immediately on the waterfront at risk, but the community at large and the infrastructure at large behind it. This is an area where, unlike the Wharf District Council, there is not a body that convenes these property owners to think about these issues at a district scale. So that's where the city has stepped in to create, our kind of really first major effort at developing a private-public partnership in which the city is working hand-in-hand with these property owners to understand what the risk is across their different properties and what kinds of strategies the property owners would like to see on their properties that would contribute to that broader neighborhood protection. So John spoke really well about, wanting to make sure that we're not precluding future options. So in this, it's thinking about how are we redeveloping just the waterfront to keep these properties safe without thinking about or without precluding future development or whatever plans they may have for their individual parcels on the waterfront. And so far it's been, I think, going very successfully in terms of getting everybody at the table together to think about how does this seem across these multiple different properties that vary from industrial to commercial to residential, to try to increase connectivity along the waterfront in this area, clean up the area, and make it more resilient. So we are entering into the design stage right now for this project, having just finished all of our technical site investigations with each property owner. We're hoping to scale that up in other neighborhoods too.
I would just emphasize, Councilor Flynn, because you mentioned the Wharf District Council. That was an existing group that came to us with this, so that was awesome, right? We would love to work with existing neighborhood groups that want to prioritize this. Sarah McCammon and her Harborfront Neighborhood Alliance is a great convening. We spent, 4 hours talking with your group my second week on the job about the potential for convening, these district scale approaches. We would love to do more of that, and we will create those groups where they don't exist in certain flood paths, but for existing neighborhood groups saying, how do I engage with the city? I think the Wharf District Council is a great model to say you can lead, a part of the process and we can work with you on that.
Thank you. And just another question, water quality. 10% of our combined sewer overflows into the channel, reducing water quality. If we retain storm water in the channel during storms, how will the quality be improved with that volume?
First of all, the volume is coming down quite a bit. We're just finishing up our major job up in Upper Roxbury that used to put combined sewers in there. That is going to be complete by the end of the year. In South Boston, we're completing the separation project. If you notice driving through the streets there, we slow the traffic down quite a bit. We're putting all new pipes in so the water will be separate. The sewage will not overflow into the channel from the South Boston side. However, there are combined sewers that we just can't separate. It's impossible to separate them. The whole south end, we treat the water one of the big storms. We treat it with an MWRA facility down at Malden Street, and then we pump it into the channel. So the water quality is getting much better. The difference of what we want to do, we're going to be holding the water for a period of maybe 12 hours. The water's held anyway at high tide. The channel does not flow out at high tide. Actually, the water's flowing in as we're discharging this combined sewer. There should be no change in environmental impact except for what we're doing right now of separating the combined sewers. So it's only going to get better, the water quality. But we're not even suggesting we're eliminating all combined sewer overflows, because it rains really, really hard and they're not designed to take it all. So our idea is to move it temporarily into the water. It's all approved by the EPA. We have a federal permit that allows us to do it. But we reduce wherever possible any combined sewer overflow. So we're doing that throughout the city.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Councilor Murphy?
Thank you for your presentation. A few questions. First, I will say I'm as old as Ed. So born in 1970, I did learn to swim at Tenian Beach when you came out and there was that black like oil under your neck. So very happy and a strong advocate for, embracing that we're a coastal city. Because when I was growing up, we weren't. And recently was over at UMass with Congressman Lynch about some of the investments they're doing there. And when you think of, a coastal college that wasn't using the ocean as a classroom, that does now, and thinking about, courageous sailing, just all of the programs, and making sure that we continue to advocate in this body for, water safety and swimming and sailing and all of the wonderful things, right? So our coast is an asset, but then obviously it's scary in a time like this, and making sure we're prepared. And I appreciated when you said, this is a public-private, because we have Boston, the city, we have the state, we have the feds, we have all of the privately owned buildings along the coast. And on Deplorable Day, and it's been mentioned about the resources homeowners have, right? What about renters? Like, what about commercial space in a building? Like, what requirement do we as a government have? Like, so we can tell homeowners these are good things, but what are we making sure we're doing in our own buildings along the coast or inland too? Because we see if we get more than a few inches of rain, it's going to not just be hitting the coast, it's going to go in farther. So do we have any answers on that?
I'm happy to start, and others please feel free to add. I think for city buildings and city assets, it is something with a lot of credit to our property management division and our public facilities department that they are considering and implementing. So we obviously had the press conference for Deployables Day, sort of adjacent to the City Hall deployable. Similarly at the Curly, there is a deployable that exists there. As we are retrofitting and investing in buildings, we are making sure that they are prepared for sea level rise and storm surge. Part of what we can also do is make sure that we have processes in place, that we make it as easy and clear as possible about resources that exist, and to a point that Rich raised earlier, that we have guidance for building owners, for renters, that regardless of the type of building they live in or where within that building that they live, that we have guidance to be able to help them be safe. And some of that is, as Matt referenced, you can find on the Office of Emergency Management website. One of the things which certainly did come up at Deployables Day is to think about, to your point, Councillor, is there additional assistance or support that we should be providing to renters or property owners across the city as we do this long-term transformation and near-term transformation of our coastline? So that's something we'll be looking forward to diving into further as we continue to promote the resources that are available and make our processes as easy as possible. And I imagine that over the course of the year ahead, we'll have more conversations about that.
Thank you on that. On the, please.
Yeah, if I could add, Councilor, one of the other things that we're starting to do is providing a lot more information to folks about storms as they come, right? And obviously, in the history of Boston, we're pretty good with the second snowstorm of the season, right? The first snowstorm, it's like, okay, we're back at it. But we have that mindset. It's like riding a bike. Here's where my snow shovel is. Here's where my salt is. I don't park on these streets. We need to get that same mindset for coastal storms and for precip events. So the city has a website, the alerts website, where we will send out now, here's the expected high tide, and here are the areas of Boston where we anticipate flooding, either for your building or for your infrastructure. And for the first time in Boston's history this past year, we sent out a notice saying, don't park on this street during an event because your car is going to get flooded, right? And so I think part of this is empowering folks to know what's coming and to reach out to us and join our alert systems and then say, we'll tell you what's happening so that you can better prepare yourself in the immediate storm. In addition to protecting your building, it impacts how we get to work, where we park our car, what the day is like.
Thank you. On the, like, it's listed here, and you talked about it in your presentation about like the 3 concurrent strategies. We have, if we have a storm tonight, what in the next 10 years, beyond that, can you just speak a little bit more about how we're balancing that, and what if, a big storm does come, and is it going, and if we run out of money, we are talking about billions. I mean, it is something we need to invest in. It's something we can do. We did the big dig, we can do this, but how much, but it has to have an investment and a buy-in, and not just in Boston, right? It has to be the state and the federal funding too. So what's the plan, and what will have to wait if something big comes sooner than we expected? Do we have plans for that also?
Happy to start, and others feel free to add. As Chief Sweat mentioned, we really are focusing our dollars on the capital side, on those places that where there's the most urgent need to invest, those places that have the highest probability of experiencing coastal flooding. And so those are many of the projects that CAT went through, and really the significant increase in investment has been about a collaboration with the City Council. So it was 2 capital budgets ago when we allocated more money than any point in time in the city's history towards coastal resilience projects. You'll see in this last approved capital budget a $75 million climate resilience reserve, which essentially is a pool of funding designed to allow us to leverage state and federal grants that will help us invest in these transformative projects along our coastline to address these areas of most significant risk. In the near term, that is how we are moving forward on this key set of projects. In the slightly longer term, it is that collaboration with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that we see as a really important path to unlock what is likely hundreds of millions or billions over time, but to be able to transform our coastline more fully. And as part of that, and with credit to Secretary Tepper and Chief Hoffer, there is an ongoing conversation at the state level as part of the Resilient Mass effort to think about additional financing tools that we may need as a Commonwealth, or be able to empower municipalities to use to make sure that we can fund the work that is necessary along our coastline. All of that is happening in parallel to the really great work by OEM and a variety of other departments to think about what's the near-term planning preparedness work that we need to be doing. And with credit to OEM, they've successfully received several FEMA grants recently that are helping accelerate our natural hazard preparedness.
No, thank you for that. And do we feel like you're in a position to continue to be in that forefront to apply for these grants? Like, we're in a good position for those?
Yeah, I can jump in here. Yeah, so we fortunately just received the 2024 Regional Catastrophic Planning Grant. So we found out about that last week. So that'll be coming your way as soon as we're able to. So that's $2.3 million focused on climate resiliency. So that's looking at building up programming and educational materials for residents, making them aware of their risks and things that they can do, investing in programs in which we can help support residents and take on some of this work, making them aware of the technical assistance piece to help renters or homeowners, and then a number of projects in there aligning with the operational planning. So as these new flood barriers come on board, we had Deployables Day where there was a host of private partners. As we're going to see more of them come on, how are we ensuring that they're communicating with the city? So we're understanding when those are going up, and we're communicating with our public safety partners and doing trainings on that end. And I think for our piece, as we continue to do our planning, we're just driving home the culture of kind of climate resilience, in the sense that we can't write our plans based on what has happened in the last 10 years in Boston. We need to be looking forward. So oftentimes when we're having these discussions and we're holding tabletop exercises and bringing folks together, we're looking at the devastating flooding in Vermont or New York City with the flash flooding that it's not if but when. And making them not kind of get complacent in that sense. So we take that approach with all of our planning, and then so it's great too that in partnership with the Office of Climate Resiliency to kind of spearhead that work in that sense.
And Council, we're trying to be as transparent as we can with everybody about our pursuit of state and federal grants. So we have a specific tab on our website where you can see the exact status, what we've applied for, has been funded, has been allocated. We get lots of questions, obviously, from folks saying, we heard you applied for this grant a couple of years ago, what happened to it? So we have a one-stop shop for all of the climate resilience-related grants, regardless of what cabinet is leading it, so that folks can have
It's in
access
one
to it.
space. Thank you. And I will say on the education piece, very important. When I pulled into the Horseshoe, I thought it was safety barriers at first because it was in front of like the glass window, and then I realized, because then when I walked across, it was at this, the train station, the Blue Line. I'm like, these are flood barriers, and then they were gone. I'm like, I guess they'll come back if needed. Where across the city have we put those stations in to be prepared to put those barriers, or were those just a few to show examples?
So there are at least 3 public sites, city-owned sites, where they existed at the Curley Community Center, the Mary Ellen Welch Greenway in East Boston, and City Hall. There are also at least 20 additional sites, or 20 sites across the city, some of which are places, to your point, like the MBTA head houses for the aquarium. Others have been installed proactively by private property owners, like 255 State Street, directly across the street from the aquarium. One of the things that we have asked folks to do, and was an important message for us to get out on Friday, Deployables Day, with a lot of good work by Matt and by Naeli, is to make sure that property owners who have deployable flood walls that the city does not yet sort of know of, to sort of register those with the city, which they can do on the city's website, boston.gov, deployables-day. By doing that, we can make sure that OEM is proactively sending out alerts to those property owners in advance of major storms, so that they can let us know when they're deployed, which is an incredibly important thing for first responders to know, so that if they are arriving on scene, they can know that the barriers are
And if you
up.
have a tool and you don't know to put it up, yeah.
Exactly.
That's great, so
That's-
you'll have them all registered. Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Louisian.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you for your diligence in working on this issue. I know you held a working session last term on this, and it's an important conversation to continue going. And thank you to all of you for the work that you do. I think I heard you, Chief Sweat, talk about how it is not the city's intent to have private developers be the ones, or is it? It was okay. But you, Chris, feel free if you'd like to also chime in. For private development to take the forefront on their parcels in responding to issues of flooding and needing to build out a stronger stormwater infrastructure. We have examples, I guess, and I don't know if they fall in the category of private developers, Wharf District Council, as well as previously mentioned, their ability to be resourced and to work together on creating a plan. What does that look like in terms of how the city plans in conjunction with how, resourced civic organizations are able to plan and private? How does that, isn't it dependent on you, on the city developing an overall plan for them, for others to then follow?
Yeah, I'm happy to describe some of the process, and I'll use the Wharf District Council as an example. They took the city planning effort, which had come up with solutions and set design parameters in that area, and found state funding. They applied for state funding to take it that next step and say, okay, what does this mean in terms of design implementation across our district? One of the really valuable benefits of that type of an approach is they were able to look at the combined solutions across their district and deal potentially not just only with coastal flooding, but as John had mentioned, precip behind those coastal walls is really important. So if you look at the plan that's up on their website, they contemplate actually doing stormwater controls and a stormwater tank near the Boston Harbor Hotel. And saying, okay, well, if we do this work on the coast, do we actually create capacity to actually store precip that's coming down from elsewhere in Boston? So it allows you to say, the best, most efficient, most cost-effective solution, might not be entirely on one parcel or another parcel, but as a combined solution, and your protection you might be funding on somebody else's property. So I think that type of collaboration, I was amazingly heartened by how collaborative the group was. I mean, this was a group of different owners that on different issues have some different perspectives, and this was uniformly supported in terms of the process and then the outcome of what they put together. I think from our perspective, again, one of the critical aspects of federal funding, and Chris can talk more about this, is the readiness of our community to move forward with those projects. Because the last thing the federal government wants to do is sort of, bless an approach, and then it's contentious and things wind up in court. And so that readiness of our community to say, no, we've been talking about this for years. We have the plans ready to go. This is our preferred alternative. What can you do to support that is going to be really critical to us moving fast enough to do it. But again, I'd reiterate where you started from. We are not at all, because sometimes there is this scuttlebutt in the discourse, we're not putting reliance on the private sector for neighborhood solutions to coastal resilience. There will always be a plan B, but we do want to recognize that at this moment, 30% of our shoreline is owned by the private sector. So it behooves us to say, what can you do in your time if you have a redevelopment plan anyways, to help protect the city and protect your property? And then if that doesn't move forward the right amount of time, we have a plan B.
Thank you. So 47 miles of coastal land here in the city of Boston. The transformative infrastructure bill, you talked about federal funding. How much of that have we been able to get to address issues of coastal flooding and build out citywide plan?
So we'll talk about that plan overall. I think we've had a dual approach. One, we've had projects that have been ready to go, like the 4-point channel berm, like some of these other projects where we have specific project-related grant applications in the system. And then I'll turn it over to Chris to talk more broadly about the Army Corps' meta study of our coastal solutions.
So the Army Corps, over the course of the next 3 years, will be working with us to do a series of public conversations around what that longer-term transformation would look like and what their federal investment would be. I think in the near term, and Rich, please feel free to add to this. I think what we are seeing along the 4-point channel is a pretty good example of what Chief Sweat mentioned about how the city can think about investing in a critical piece of flood protection for the 4-point neighborhood that can then be enhanced or augmented by private development around it, but we are not waiting for development to be able to put in key resilience infrastructure. So the city is leading in a design of a elevated berm, improved harbor walk in that stretch. There's $10 million in the city's budget to be able to do that, which will be expected to be matched by $10 million of FEMA funding. And that infrastructure would be in place for then to protect the neighborhood in the near term and in the long term. And if subsequent development comes along, it can potentially sort of build on top of or around that. Rich, anything you would add?
No, that's accurate. Thank you.
Thanks. You mentioned that you said FEMA, which makes me nervous as they announced an $8 billion shortfall in addressing their outstanding expenditures, and you have a hurricane in Appalachia where they're not able to respond. So that's what makes me nervous, and so the infrastructure bill provided us with a lot of opportunity to really prepare ahead, and so I just hope that we're really taking advantage of that rather than relying. I mean, we should rely on FEMA, especially in cases of emergencies that are unpredictable, but how much we're doing on the front end.
I think it is a great point to raise, and I think it was very valuable that earlier this year the mayor hosted Administrator Criswell here, and we were able to do a tour of some of the sites that FEMA is connected with, which includes 4-point Channel, Moakley Park, a section of East Boston by Lewis Street and Carlton Wharf, and Tinian Beach. And there is an increasing amount of collaboration with FEMA Region 1 around exactly this issue, and they are going to be an important partner for us going forward to something which Chief Sweat mentioned, our ability, though, to be really competitive for federal funding and federal partnerships requires us to have projects that we all feel great about and that are ready to go. And so getting those designs right over the next couple of years, understanding what implementation will look like, property access, those sorts of real nitty-gritty things, that's actually what we really need to be, that's what we're sort of focused on now to make sure that we are very competitive in getting federal funding so we can actually do the transformative projects going forward.
And I'd say, Councilor, it's a great question and concern. I think it's an opportunity over the last sort of post-Katrina, post-Sandy environment, pre that, FEMA was predominantly just funding emergency response, right? And you had to be hit by and rebuilding after a major event. One of the things we have seen is a growing, very positively, attention to pre-disaster resilient infrastructure being put into place. And so a lot of the conversation about FEMA's budget challenges actually have to do with disaster response, because we are experiencing more and more costly disasters where they have to go in and then go back to Congress to get more money in. The silver lining of that deficit is that it motivates them to actually put in more capital dollars up front to say we should be doing more to protect against these costly disasters so that they are less threatening so that they are less costly when they do hit. And we haven't seen thus far reductions in their motivation to say we need to get pre-disaster capital funding and infrastructure grants out there.
Thank you. And I think, not punting just to the federal and state, which I want to make sure that we're doing, we also on the city council need to make sure, and I think we have, and we need to continue doing a better job alongside the mayor of investing our capital budget and making sure that we're doing this right. Madam Chair, if I may, one short question and one longer question, okay. I think Councilor Joe was asking questions earlier about Mercy Boulevard, and I know if you think it was 2 years ago now, UMass, together with BPDA, put together money, and it was like $1 million study to study Morrissey Boulevard, Day Boulevard, all the circle, all that. What have we, is that study been completed? What have we learned from that? How is that feeding into ongoing? There's always a study, so trying to figure out like, when have we, what have we learned, or are we still studying?
Absolutely. I believe it was a $1.1 million study with $500,000 from the planning department or then BPDA, and $600,000 from MassDOT, essentially just to study the Morrissey Boulevard corridor all the way from Neponset Circle up to Preble Circle. That has been sort of managed through the Morrissey Boulevard Commission, which Councilor Fitzgerald sits on. We've had, I believe, 6 commission meetings to date. The expectation is that come this December, there will be a 15% design, so essentially a sort of advanced conceptual design for what the transformation of Morrissey Boulevard will look like, that would be sort of reviewed and voted on by the Morrissey Boulevard Commission. The then critical next step is how we identify funding to be able to move that work forward. And from a pure resilience standpoint, the section between Freeport Boulevard and Bianculli Boulevard is a very critical section for us to think about how we elevate.
Freeport and, I'm sorry, where?
Bianculli, sort of
Okay. Yeah.
And there has been, I think, a number of good public conversations about that. Happy to follow up with sort of additional information.
Thank you. Would want to learn more, especially as we think about what expansion in that neighborhood looks like in Chapter 91, but we also have Church of Space City. So how is that all working together? And then I had a longer question that escaped me. I guess more of a comment, there are neighborhoods that aren't well-resourced and able to really plan, especially in our black and brown neighborhoods that are often, whether you're talking about East Boston, talking about Neponset down in, from Dorchester, Mattapan, Hyde Park. So I want to think about, hear what the city is doing proactively to do the work of equity, to make sure that we are reaching out and helping neighbors and neighborhoods plan alongside the city. I know that there was that demonstration the other day that I think the councilor took part with the mayor, but how are we also empowering residents to be able to collectively come together and plan for coastal flooding?
About the resource fair.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I think so. 2 separate pieces. One, I think there is, as Kat touched on, and with great support, to your point, from the City Council, investment in the city be able to provide that outreach and coordinating there in places like Border Street in East Boston or Benning Street or other areas along our coastline to make sure that we are doing proactive outreach about what the design of our coastline should look like and putting in place plans and eventual capital projects to transform that coastline. Coupling that long-term work with nearer-term efforts, as you saw this past Friday with the Deployables Day Fair, making sure that we are providing resources and information to residents there or at OEM's Ready Boston event on, I think it was September 14th, sort of in the community to be able to make sure that we are getting critical information to residents in a bunch of different channels. I think that is certainly a huge focus for us going forward across all 3 of these areas, the near-term, or the sort of emergency preparedness work, closing the near-term flood paths, as well as this long-term collaboration.
Okay, thank you. And it's not really a comment, but we had a hearing last year on green and gray stormwater infrastructure that I think was really informative, and I think that's probably the topic of another hearing order if, you want any ideas, but I think it's really important for us to continue, and I know at Boston Water and Sewer, you guys are doing really great work, and I just thought that it was a really great hearing for us to see the different possible solutions, and want to thank all of you for your work. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Lujan. That's a great point. All these nature-based solutions speak together in this ecosystem. So would love to partner with Councilor Braden as well, who sponsored that hearing, to make that conversation happen in the near future. I'm grateful to all of you for being here. I do have a couple of questions, knowing that I am in deep partnership with all of you, and a lot of what we have already worked on together has been implemented. So again, thank you for that. Organizing my questions, I realize it might be helpful to talk about the emergency response, or the short-term solutions. Near-term, Kat, I'll go to you. And then Chris, rounding us out in the longer-term implementation, Chris and/or Chief. And then I have some questions for Boston Water and Sewer about the $150 million. But I'll start with Matt, Boston Water Academy's finest. Thank you for being here. Operationalizing the deployables. I was really grateful to be there on Friday and to witness the flood wall that was erected by the Parks Department. Talking with them, these are great guys, the foreman. They said that it took them 3 hours to get that up. And so just thinking about operationalizing that, what does that mean? You know, when we do see these weather patterns starting to become urgent, and seeing that it could have disastrous impacts on our city. What does that look like right now? What are some of the challenges? Do we need more staffing for that? If you can just speak broadly to that.
Yeah, so thanks for that question. In all the work that we do, we make sure we heavily involve the departments on the ground that are carrying out that work to understand what that operational need looks like and what that time means. And there's kind of a trade-off there where, if you only need a few hours to put it up, we can give you more confidence in the forecast. However, we recognize that there's a trade-off where if it needs to be 48, 72 hours out in order to ensure that you have staffing, that there may just be less reliable confidence in that forecast at that time. So we work with a number of different departments understanding that. Another good example is with the transportation department with some of the posting signage. They need at least 72 hours in advance notice for that, where they understand the trade-off, whereas our police, fire, EMS partners, they just need to know right when that flood barrier is up, and then they can kind of adapt as needed. Kind of as we continue this work, one of the big challenges I think that our office faces is that we're heavily reliant on grant funds. So we are primarily funded out of the UASC grant, Urban Area Security Initiative, which is a terrorism-focused grant. And now as we shift through the mayor's vision to have OEM kind of leading in this space on that short-term response to extreme weather events, we kind of are up a push and pull with a lot of the funding sources that we have for personnel that need to be tied to terrorism. So one of our kind of efforts and long-term strategies is how are we working to shift these staff off of the grant, getting them onto the operating budget to kind of ensure that we can fully commit to doing this work and not have any kind of wiggle room or need to put things on pause due to constraints there. And then on the other end, if there was the major hurricane or large storm, where are we convening folks? So that would be at the city's Emergency Operations Center. For folks that have been down there, it's I know our previous chief, Shuman Benford, always said it was a humble space. That's putting it very nicely. It would not meet the need. We would make it work, but it's not the modern space that the city needs in order to convene all of the decision makers and kind of operational folks that would be required to be in the same room. And we find that folks often are displaced throughout the city in their own command centers, which makes it a little bit challenging. So as we look forward, we're looking at how are we trying to find a space that's suitable for everyone and not just for the extreme weather events, but looking at some of the other major events that we have upcoming in the next couple of years with, 2026 with World Cup, tall ships returning to Boston. So there's going to be a number of big events where we're going to be bringing in our state and federal partners and making sure that we have the adequate space for those events, in addition to, the flash flood that might occur overnight or the extreme heat wave as well, that it's a suitable space for all of our partners.
Do you need a new command center facility?
Yes.
Okay. All right, just for my colleagues and everybody listening, we need a new command center facility.
We're happy to schedule another tour for folks if you'd like to see it and you haven't been down there. We make it work, but we have outgrown it very much so.
That's good to know. Thank you so much.
I would say, I think your question, Councilor, is on as well on the deployment of those temporary flood deployables and how do we sort of manage that staffing. And I think it's an excellent question because at scale, right? We need to figure out where is the equipment we're deploying, and you saw sort of where that's stored. And our philosophy is it should be as close to where it's being utilized as possible. So we're going to need to find places to store this, close to the flood pathway. And then where's the labor to install it coming from, right? And I think we're going to approach it over time as we build out this capacity the same way we do snowstorms, where it's going to be a mix of, City Hall staff, based on department, as well as contract employees, who are located in the neighborhood, who we could say, this is your top priority, get this installed now. Because we don't want folks with multiple responsibilities throughout the city in that 24 to 48 hours before an event, without any slack. We also do, and I think it was mentioned, but we add contingency to those forecasts so that we would much rather install something and not have it actually be necessary than miss a time where it was needed and not have it installed. And so that approach means that we need to make sure we have the staffing available to do that.
Thank you. Thank you for elaborating on that. And if there's any sign-up sheet for volunteers, sign me up. I'm ready for it. One more question for Matt, just talking about community outreach and education to the public. Thank you for outlining all of that. What does your public information campaign look like, seeing that in the event of an emergency, and what we saw with the 911 outage, there was a proliferation of misinformation put out online. And a lot of the coordination is dependent on public buy-in. And so I feel like it's necessary for us to get out to community groups to let them know exactly what is happening. In the event that there is a hurricane in East Boston, you go to East Boston High School, or you go to the Bradley, you go to High Ground. Can you just elaborate on what your plans are to go out to the community, and if it's okay, just to give a friendly encouragement to go out to these neighborhood associations if you haven't already?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So the plug there is to have residents sign up for the city's emergency notification system. So that's Alert Boston, which can be found on our emergency management page. The misinformation and disinformation is definitely one of the major challenges that we're seeing across the country when it comes to just, whether it be bad actors or folks just, wanting to delay the response by just putting out information saying that, help's not coming, or, putting out false narratives around what the city's doing. So when it comes to an emergency, we ensure that there's that unified voice. So it's always coming from the city's main page. It's always being amplified on the city's, Boston.gov site, and ensuring that folks are utilizing reputable sites when kind of sourcing their information. And that can be found on the whole list of, tips and tricks for residents in the event if they want to be more prepared. In terms of getting out into the community, and our communications director, Kyron Owens, is heavily involved, and I feel like every time I speak with folks that they always have something to say about how great he is. But we're always eager to find more opportunities and more events to go to, whether they're led on ours or just kind of invited by partner departments or agencies that are hosting their own. So if there are other opportunities that it would make sense for OEM to table at and speak to certain hazards within certain neighborhoods, we're happy to do so.
Thank you, and shout out to Kyron for everything he does. And thank you for that. I invite you to East Boston and Charlestown. You and Kyron. I'm pretty sure he's already been there, though. Speaking of tabling, I was really grateful to have Catherine at my East Boston cleanup to let folks know about Resilient Border Street, to have a very on-the-ground, boots-on-the-ground approach to community outreach. So thank you for that. That's a good transition to you and your work. I'm really excited that you were able to elaborate on Border Street and what it means to bring in private partners and public partners. While conversations are ongoing, I know that there are still some challenges as it relates to the regulatory framework. That area is still within the designated port area. And while East Boston's history is rooted in the maritime industry, it is an archaic use of that land. And it is necessary for us, given Plan East Boston and the rezone, to fortify that area. And so could you just talk about some of the regulatory issues? Maybe Chris, you can elaborate on it as well. But what it means to be within the DPA still there, and what our partnership is with CZM and DEP to rectify that.
Thank you for that question. It's a great one, and definitely a challenge in this part of East Boston and in other parts of the city where we have other designated port areas. So just to make sure everyone knows what that is, it essentially is a state regulation over certain areas of the Commonwealth that requires that the land use in these areas are used for water-dependent industrial uses. So like you said, this part of East Boston where the Border Street waterfront has changed significantly, and the fabric of the neighborhood around the waterfront has become very residential. And so the area does not support water-dependent uses the way it used to. I think this is a big reason why the city has taken the first step to bringing these property owners together in this area to advance coastal resilience on their property, because as a result of the DPA in this area, land values are very low, and as therefore property owners haven't been able to mobilize to build this kind of very expensive resilience infrastructure themselves. So the way that we're approaching this project with them is, again, we're very focused on just the waterfront of this area. And when thinking about the design of infrastructure in this area, we want to be trying to bring in these community benefits that the residents that we've spoken to during the tabling event and many other outreach events that we've had over the last 6 months or so, about what kinds of community benefits we can add: open space, public access, tree canopy, things like that. But the reality is that we need to build this infrastructure as soon as possible to keep flooding out, to protect the entire community, and the DPA will likely still be in place by the time that we are ready to move forward with these projects, or with this project. So we're essentially approaching it as, what can we design that is compliant with the designated port area from a resilience perspective that we could move forward with as soon as possible? And how can that infrastructure potentially be adapted into a longer-term vision that supports what these property owners and what the East Boston community more broadly would like to see in the future, should the DPA boundary in this area be lifted? If anyone else wants to add on that, please feel free to.
The only other bit that I would add, sort of less Border Street and more sort of in general, and you have a number of people who are here who can speak much more about this, is that we are very interested in thinking about sort of transformation of the regulatory process, and I think in two different ways, and we, again, give a lot of credit to the state who is really leading on this. One is to think about how we just simply, in the timeline it takes to go through the permitting process, that we are making that as a timeline that matches the urgency that we all feel without cutting corners on the important processes associated with it. So I think there's some work which we all want to think about doing about how you have good regulatory permitting processes for work along the coastline. Second is to think about if there is an update to regulation itself that continues to sort of support and promote engagement and access, and to the point that Chief Sweat raised, sort of the incredibly important sort of improvement in the health and quality of the Boston Harbor, but also allows us to do work along our 47 miles of coastline of the sort of type that we're doing. So I think there's a lot more in front of us about how to think about regulatory reform. A lot of knowledgeable folks who I think will be on the panel following us about what this could look like, but I think an area of collaboration between the council or with the council going forward.
Thank you, and that is another great segue into just a general question about challenges. This is, obviously the creation of this office is necessary and urgent, and there's a lot of work to do. So in your opinion, we've talked about the financing gap, the regulatory framework, all of that. Could you just expand on what you think the biggest challenges are, and what your office could do to mitigate some of those challenges, or address them, rather?
Happy to start. Others, please feel free to add. In my mind, there are 5 areas that we're particularly focused on related to this. 2 you just mentioned. One is financing, and we talked a little bit about that, and with great credit to the collaboration with the City Council, the significant investment that has been made by the mayor into coastal resilience infrastructure, and staff to be able to pursue state and federal grants. The second is around regulation work. The third is to make sure that we are building the workforce to be able to implement these projects. And with a lot of credit to Chief Trin Nguyen and Oliver Sotos Garcia, our Green New Deal Director and Environment Commissioner, we were able to receive a $10 million grant from NOAA to help build a green jobs pipeline, a portion of which is very much focused on building that pipeline into careers around coastal resilience. So a lot of work to think about how we use this as an opportunity to rethink workforce and the city's own objectives around equitable procurement. The fourth area that is a focus for us, and we sort of touched on, is this governance structure, how we think about building coastal resilient infrastructure on a coastline that is owned by multiple stakeholders. Some of that is, I think we've seen really good progress and collaboration already. Some of it are models that we have yet to sort of fully design and implement, but a big focus for us going forward. And the fifth area of focus is really around essentially construction innovation. And one, there's a different way that we can be approaching sort of the financing gap challenge, is to think about different methods of construction or materials that we could use. And there is no better place than this city and this region to be thinking up what these are. I mean, 2 days ago, there was a huge event in the South Boston Waterfront around a low-carbon concrete company. Last night, there was an event over at the Cambridge Innovation Center of 8 new startups in this area who are thinking about climate tech, new climate tech products to help accelerate this work. We as a city want to make sure that we are identifying the challenges that we need to solve, supporting companies that want to test new ideas, and then upon evaluating them, really figure out how we actually scale those up in the work that we have going forward and beyond our coastline to the nation or the world beyond. So those are sort of the 5 broad areas I think we were focused on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with those, certainly. I'll just add sort of 2 other spins. One, because so much of this activity is going to happen with government, one of my concerns is that the private citizens and the neighborhood groups don't feel co-ownership of this. But this is inherently, like, we're all in this together. And certainly in the immediate emergency response, we need folks to listen to our advice. We need folks to reach out to us with their particular needs. We need to be, supportive of this because we can address these problems much faster together. And we're all going to have to take action on this, the same way we do with other types of storms. It's, there isn't some big solution. We're not going to put in place by mid-century a Boston Harbor barrier that, okay, we're done, we're solved it, government solved it for us. That's not a viable option for us here in Boston. So I think part of this is in keeping the attention on this. While there are lots of pressures on the here and now, we're going to have to continue to prioritize this for the next 20 years. And that's hard, right, for this to be one of those priorities for the city going forward that wasn't even talked about before Sandy, right, in a real way. So I think that's one of, like, partnership and readiness. And then the second is about mindset and the urgency of that mindset. We have spent decades, and a lot of the regulations we're talking about, either Chapter 91 or DPA or a lot of our coastal zone management regulations, were to slow down or prevent bad development from happening on our shoreline. We now need to spin it on its head and say we need a certain amount of infrastructure to protect everything that we just invested in the Clean Harbor, delivered by a certain period of time. That is a very different mindset. Our coast, which we largely in Boston, is man-made lines from filled tidelands, and it was about how much fill we had at the time. We're going to have to rethink how we do that. And so it's not just regulatory governance; those are barriers, but it's this mindset to say we need to move quickly with the right projects in the right locations and create momentum and make those projects easier to get done.
Thank you, Chief. Just expanding on one of the umbrellas that you mentioned as a challenge, the financing gap. We've already talked about public funds and the money that we've already gone or sought out rather. And then talking about innovation, it seems like we're going to have to be really innovative about some of the financing structures. And so to help with this and assist with this, I had 4 Northeastern co-op students, shout out to Molly, Margaret, Shana, and Hope, who I think are listening in, that helped us assemble a roadmap in setting up a Boston Waterfront Business Improvement District. And so what they did was define parameters of the bid operation. They provided a list of effective landowners. They provided a budget formula, an initial draft of legislation, because this is something that needs state approval, and then also an outreach PowerPoint presentation. So I want to thank them for their work on that. There's also been discussions about a municipal climate bank, all of that. If we were to get that funding, right, we need to move forward on this, and it's a monumental task, and that is where a lot of my efforts have been, is trying to figure this out in partnership with all of you, and I know you live this and breathe this every single day. And talking about the retrofits and adaptation, circling back to that, I said we'll be coming back to that. Understanding that if we were to even get this funding through the bid, right, it might not be enough to fund infrastructure projects. That's where the Army Corps of Engineers come in. Do you foresee that funding to help smaller property owners, right, to kind of fill that gap a little bit with adaptation? And we have the CFROD citywide in Article 25 of the zoning code in East Boston. That has meant that we've gone above and beyond what Plan East Boston has recommended in terms of height. But if we're building up, that also means that we need accessibility retrofits. Do small property owners have the money for that too? So do you foresee it helping with that? Can you expand on any other financing creative ideas that you may have or that you're exploring right now?
Happy to start. Others, please feel free to add, and Rich in particular on the Marine Park example. But I appreciate your leadership and your engagement of the team to think about what a business improvement district for resilience could look like as a method of providing, to your point, whether it is funding for the capital, funding for the maintenance to be able to maintain coastal resilience infrastructure, or funding for retrofits. I think there is a step with a lot of good work by the city's planning department in the Flynn Marine Park, which essentially is almost a version of that, where the city would provide some of the upfront capital that leaseholders within the Flynn Marine Park would then provide sort of a degree of reimbursement to be able to actually help pay for some of the coastal resilience infrastructure going forward. Rich, I don't know if there's anything you'd want to add on the Marine Park side.
I apologize for, is that BIF deck? Is that through the BIF deck or?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
The Resilience Fund in the Marine Park works because we own the property and we provide long-term leases to the developments. And in those leases, we require that they contribute sort of their fair share for non-water dependent uses to refund us the amount of money that we're building in resilient infrastructure. So that works for the Marine Park because it's all under one ownership. But it's a bid-like structure, but only applies because it's public property.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, at a high level, I think we want to bring the same level of creativity around financing and funding to resilience at all scales as we have brought to energy efficiency and electrification, and like what are the models within Mass Saves that have worked, what are the tax credits. Some of this will be encouraging our state partners to say, let's carve out specific funding schemes for this. What is the revenue that can underwrite that? We need programs that do that, right, that spread out the costs over a period of time so that it's more affordable and that, you know, all those who own a particular property are benefiting from it. So I think there's more work to be done there. I think we also need to we need to find ways of insurance companies giving recognition to the work that people are doing. So now if you're doing, you know, if you're buying homeowners insurance, you know, you get a discount if you have an alarm system. Why don't you get a discount if you have a flood barrier and you're in a flood zone, right? And it's like, and we don't, that level of, you know, of responsiveness hasn't yet been built in the industry. Chris and I have had a lot of conversations on the municipal bond market, in the insurance market, and the finance market. They are catching up, right, to be honest, with the nuance and the level of detail about what risk management means and then how to appropriately incentivize it financially. So that's where my headspace is, like, what do we learn from energy efficiency and electrification that's worked in terms of financing it, and then what are the drivers of cost reduction that you should be, you know, receiving on the side of insurance or finance because you've lowered the risk, and how do we create that model that works? But there's a lot more to be done, and we greatly appreciate the efforts of you and the Northeastern students and others. We want the best folks possible thinking about how we do this. It hasn't been figured out elsewhere in the country either, which is common. Like, who else? It's like the answer isn't in the U.S. So I think, you know, we are still at the state of the art of trying to, you know, do this again short of the storm. Right? There's a lot of money available after a major event. You know, we're trying to get prepared before one.
Awesome. Clearly, you all have been working on this again, day in and day out, and so I appreciate your efforts. I had mentioned during the Deployables Day that I was with the Climate Avengers, and it made me hopeful for the future, just because of the leadership that is on display here in the city of Boston. We are going to be a model municipality for climate resilience. We already are, and so I just want to thank you again for your presentation. I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have any other questions at all for this illustrious panel. Okay. Yep.
Thank you again, guys. Just the mention of jobs, just from a workforce development standpoint, like, right, we're life sciences, we're trying to train our kids for that sector and all its different, you know, the sectors within life sciences. But do we have a number that we can put? I mean, if you look at jobs created, I'm thinking construction and union jobs specifically, but of course there's many other jobs created through this stuff. Do we have any sort of number on that?
So through the NOAA grant that we've received, that's actually the work that's happening right now is to size exactly how many jobs will be created, and also to think about not just career paths, but business formation around this work. So we will have an answer to you on that either by the end of this year or early next, and that analysis is ongoing.
No,
but
that's awesome.
It's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's great. Just wanted to, I'd assume predominantly union jobs, at least on the construction side of this stuff.
I think we'll have a clear sense after the analysis, but.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a broad category too, Councillor.
Right.
What falls into climate resilience. There's everything from tree maintenance to, you know, stormwater swale maintenance, and, you know, so there's a lot of, it's not just construction. There's actually a lot of O&M associated with coastal resilience and climate resilience.
Gotcha. Well, we'll have you guys here. Trees on .f.
There we go.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. Let's connect offline about the $150 million project. I'm cognizant that we have panelists that have been waiting for 2 hours. Thank you for your patience. I'm really excited to hear from you. Thank you all again so much. If I can ask that some of you stay to hear their testimony. I know everyone's busy, but just gratitude. Thank you. You're all set. Or as Councilor Durkin would say, you are dismissed. The Avengers? Nice. Okay. As they are getting up and potentially joining us in the gallery, we'll have Kathy Abbott, who's the president and CEO of Boston Harbor Now, come up. Joe Christo, Stone Living Lab. Julia Carlton McKay from Conservation Law Foundation. We also have the Mystic River Watershed in the house, Save the Harbor, Save the Bay. And Charlie Sidoti, I apologize if I said your last name wrong, who's the Executive Director of Insure Corporation. And then we also have a number of folks who are signed up for public testimony. Please know that we will also have you up for public testimony following their opening remarks as well. Oh, who's on the panel? Right here. Just a note too, we've also been joined by folks from the Children's Museum. Thank you so much for being here. We can't wait to hear from you. I know the New England Aquarium is coming through. And yeah. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm wondering if anybody has opening remarks already prepared. Okay, Kathy Abbott, thank you so much for being here. I'll start with you, and thank you again for your work in Boston Harbor Now. I'll start with you, go to Joe, and then go in sequential order moving forward.
Terrific. Thanks so much for the opportunity to testify. My name's Kathy Abbott. I'm the president and CEO of Boston Harbor Now. We are very grateful to the council and especially to Councilor Coletta Zapata for your leadership in ensuring that Boston is protected from climate impacts. We appreciate this opportunity to testify at this on this critical issue and at this critical time, including ways to fund this important and ongoing work. We're also grateful to the Wu administration for creating a new Office of Climate Resilience, a critical step and a cause for hope. The climate crisis has brought more frequent and intense storms to Boston's waterfront, as well as inland neighborhoods impacted by the flood pathways. Each new flood event highlights the need to implement coastal protections to benefit communities on both the built and natural environment. Boston Harbor Now works closely as part of the Stone Living Lab to research and implement nature-based approaches such as living shorelines, offshore reefs, and living seawalls that can provide ecological, social, and economic benefits along with flood protection. We also co-chair and staff the Climate Resiliency Working Group for the Green Ribbon Commission, where we're actively working to identify private financing coupled with local, state, and federal funding sources to protect the built environment district-wide using berms, seawalls, bulkheads, revetments, paired with deployables. Our current permitting structure was not designed to accommodate or allow many of the vital climate resilience measures that will need to be implemented in the next decade or 2 or 3. So we're also working with partners to streamline state permitting processes to make it more affordable and efficient to obtain the many necessary permits to implement these climate resiliency measures, including the new, more nature-based with more co-benefits. Boston Harbor Now stands at the ready to engage stakeholders and community leaders while supporting city officials to identify and secure billions of dollars needed to implement climate-ready plans. We look forward to our growing partnership. Thanks again for your leadership, for this opportunity to testify, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Joe?
Members of the Boston City Council, thank you so much for holding this hearing and having us here today. My name is Joe Christo, and I'm the Managing Director of the Stone Living Lab. The lab is a unique partnership between Boston Harbor Now, UMass Boston, and partners at the federal, state, and local level of government, including the National Park Service, the Commonwealth's Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, the Commonwealth's Department of Conservation and Recreation, and the City of Boston. We launched in October of 2020 to explore, research, and communicate how nature-based approaches to climate resilience can help vulnerable coastal regions in New England and beyond adapt to climate change and become more resilient. The lab appreciates the opportunity to testify at this hearing today, and I want to especially thank Councilor Coletta Zapata, Councilor Fitzgerald, Councilor Louis-Jean, Councilor Murphy, and Councilor Flynn, as well as all of the climate leaders from the City of Boston who are here as well. My work in the field of climate resilience began 12 years ago in 2012 during the emergency response to and disaster recovery following Hurricane Sandy. It was a heartbreaking time, and as Councilor Coletta Zapata noted, we are seeing similar heartbreak play out once again on national news with coverage of Hurricane Helene. My heart goes out to the people and families who have been affected by that hurricane. When I came home to Boston in 2017, I began working on climate resilience under Mayor Walsh and continued to do so under Mayor Janey and Mayor Wu until joining the Stone Living Lab in 2022. I mention my professional background to illustrate that I know firsthand how important linking disaster preparedness, emergency response, and long-term climate resilience planning is, and I'm so glad to see that happening in the city of Boston. I also mention my professional background to note that I have worked closely with the climate leaders of the city of Boston and continue to do so in my role at the Stone Living Lab, and I think they are the best climate resilience professionals I've ever worked with, and we are fortunate to have such a dedicated group focused on the existential threat of climate change in the city. Last month, my colleague Linda Arell and I wrote an op-ed that was published in Banker and Tradesman titled, "Why Boston's New Climate Office is a Big Deal." In it, we wrote that the creation of the new Office of Climate Resilience builds on the successful planning through Climate Ready Boston and is a key commitment to addressing climate change impacts as the threat is worsening. We also wrote that the new office and the Commonwealth's Office of Climate Innovation and Resilience, led by Climate Chief Melissa Hoffer, are great examples of how cities and states can marshal a true all-of-government response to this enormous challenge. Because addressing climate change will take an all-of-government and an all-of-society approach. Through disaster preparedness, comprehensive resilience planning, community engagement, building social resilience, strategic implementation of projects, and focusing on nature-based approaches to climate adaptation, we can prepare our amazing city and region for the short and long-term effects of climate change. The Stone Living Lab is committed to continuing to partner with the city on this work, and is always here as a resource. Please let me know if you have any questions, and thanks again.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Councillor Coletta Zapata and Councillor Fitzgerald and members of the Boston City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Julia Carlton McKay, and I am the Director of Community Resilience at the Conservation Law Foundation. CLF applauds the city's ambitious climate resilience planning efforts to date. It is now time to focus on implementation. Making Boston climate ready will cost billions. The financial decisions we make today will have as much of an impact on resilience as the design decisions we make. Additionally, the interdependence of regional resilience strategies will necessitate coordination between project stakeholders. With this front of mind, we urge the Office of Climate Resilience to prioritize two tasks as they implement Boston's coastal resilience solutions. First, we ask the Office of Climate Resilience to create a public dashboard to track implementation progress of Climate Ready Boston, including project funding strategies and timelines. Due to the enormous cost of protecting Boston's coastal neighborhoods, a multitude of funding and financing strategies will be required. This has equity implications, as relying too much on private dollars will result in lost opportunities for public waterfront access and will put neighborhoods at risk if resilience projects are delayed due to market fluctuations. Similarly, prioritizing the most physically vulnerable areas of the city may result in devastating consequences for other communities with less capacity to adapt and recover following a major storm. A public implementation dashboard would allow for public comment and accountability as funding and prioritization decisions are made in advance of the budgeting process. Second, we ask that the Office of Climate Resilience to convene coordination meetings with other city departments, state and federal agencies, and other key project stakeholders. Many Climate Ready Boston projects will require an all-of-government approach, requiring a venue for shared planning. Additionally, major resilience infrastructure investments will, by design, change the flood boundaries. It will be critical to understand how Climate Ready Boston projects relate to other planned regional resilience projects in order to assess changing needs and priorities. We are eager to help usher Boston towards a more equitable and resilient future and are excited to get to work. If we coordinate effectively, we can achieve this vital task. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Rundle. I lead policy projects at Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, and I'm here with our Executive Director, Chris Mancini. Wanted to thank Councillor Coletta Zapata and Fitzgerald, as well as Council President Louis Jean and Councillors Flynn and Murphy for hosting this hearing. As managers of the Metropolitan Beaches Commission for the state legislature, Save the Harbor, Save the Bay recently conducted a series of community workshops where we went in person to communities from Nahant to Nantasket, including East Boston, Southie, and Dorchester, focusing on climate adaptation strategies along our metropolitan beaches. And our goal over the next months is to take this feedback and create specific recommendations that can protect our coast while preserving access to these very valued and spectacular natural resources. We know this is a complex issue, and one of the consistent takeaways we heard from each workshop was that climate change transcends physical and political boundaries. And so it was really great to hear the panel here today talk about public-private partnerships and the need to work collaboratively, considering that the city does not own the majority of the coastline. We believe that a coordinated effort between municipalities, state agencies, and other stakeholders, including the city, CZM, DCR, the Department of Environmental Protection, Boston Water and Sewer, and the Planning Department, just to name a few, needs to happen. And as was mentioned, Save the Harbor was an integral part in helping lead the Boston Harbor cleanup, a regional effort made possible by the creation of the MWRA to take on responsibility and oversee the construction of the treatment plant at Deer Island. And as a result, we are home to one of the greatest environmental turnaround stories in the world. And Chief Sweat, you kind of stole my punchline, but I'm glad we're on the same page. We've done it before and we can do this again. We know what it looks like to have harbor-wide collaboration, and to that end, we encourage and recommend a strategy to create an MWRA-style governmental authority capable of designing, building, and funding Boston Harbor coastal resiliency systems to protect all the municipalities that flood throughout the Boston Harbor, with the city leading this effort. Want to commend some of the city's existing projects, including the collaborative redesign of Tinian Beach, which we see as a blueprint that can be transferred to other public beaches in our region, a partnership between the Boston Planning Department and the DCR to address flooding pathways in Dorchester and revitalize a valuable waterfront park and beach. We also want to call out the Moakley Park Vision Plan that protects South Boston along the cleanest urban beaches in the country. Save the Harbor has a unique network of trust with community partners, many of our favorites who are here with us today, including TAC, Boston Harbor Now, CLF, the Children's Museum, and the Harborfront Neighborhood Alliance. And this really allows for the meaningful community engagement that is needed to guide climate resiliency work, and as mentioned, get projects shovel ready, so we're ready for those funding opportunities. We're ready to support an ambitious agenda to coordinate our efforts and link existing and future projects so we can respond to sea level rise and storm surge on a holistic, harbor-wide basis. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Charlie, before we go to you, because you are our call to action, our so what, and I would like to end with your testimony. I'm going to go to Carl Alexander, who is from the Mystic River Watershed, who's on Zoom. If you can hear us. Oh, there you are. We can see you. Let's see if we can hear you.
Great, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, great, good afternoon. My name is Carl Alexander, and I currently serve as the Greenways Program Manager for the Mystic River Watershed Association. Many thanks to the Chair, Councilor Coletta Zapata, and the City Council for the opportunity to testify. Also to the Mayor and the Mayor's Office of Climate Resilience for all your important work on this matter. I'd like to use my time to share words of encouragement and progress as it relates to the regional coordination and strategy necessary for addressing this important issue of coastal flooding. Since 2018, we have helped to convene 21 municipalities, state agencies, and non-government organizations to form the Resilient Mystic Collaborative, which to date has collectively secured nearly $100 million towards flood resilience interventions north of the downtown. As it relates to protecting from coastal flooding, the Amelia Earhart Dam on the Mystic River and the Charles River Dam are certainly the most pertinent. As sea levels rise, large storm events will top the dams at their existing heights, and the areas of impact would really be catastrophic. As interventions to the dam and seven other critical key flood pathways are made, hundreds of thousands of residents and over $60 billion in real estate value will be protected. But we need to continue to work really diligently to protect communities, though, that are south of the dams as well. These projects already underway are addressing coastal flooding in the Mystic River watershed, and a significant amount of funding has been placed towards the raising of the Amelia Earhart Dam and is currently under design by DCR. The Army Corps of Engineers are currently studying the raising of the Charles River Dam as well. As these improvements are being made, the Mystic River Watershed Association has been has had a key eye on community engagement and advocating for these investments that will benefit community members, especially ensuring increased inclusive open space and continued affordable living opportunities. Just for a key takeaway, we're well underway collectively in solving these issues. So just a word of encouragement. We're off to a great start. There's a lot more to do, and we look forward to continuing being a dedicated partner. Welcome the opportunity to lend lessons learned from the Resilient Mystic Collaborative and our experience towards similar efforts needed throughout the harbor and the region. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Carl. And then in the spirit of solutions, Charlie, we will go to you now for your testimony.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to the committee. My name is Charlie Sidoti. I'm the Executive Director of Insure. We are a nonprofit innovation hub. Our sole mission is to support insurance innovation necessary to address the challenges related to climate change. Before I get into the testimony, I want to express sincere sympathies to the people affected by Hurricane Helene, and note that many, if not most, of the people affected are underinsured or uninsured. And this is going to significantly affect, even with robust disaster relief, their ability and the speed at which they can recover from the recent catastrophes. We believe that insurance is one of the most efficient and quickest ways to flood capital into a community following a disaster. We also recognize the role of insurance to capture the value of all the projects that the previous panel talked about in the insurance market to provide benefits that can use to be helped to finance the projects. But it is not functioning efficiently, effectively in those roles. Climate change is disrupting insurance markets now. It's resulting in increased prices, limited access to insurance, and large and growing protection gaps. Protection gaps are the difference between expected losses and insured losses. That is what it lands on the city, the community, and the individuals and enterprises that live in the city. Even absent catastrophes, an inefficiently functioning insurance market threatens property values and economic stability, because insurance plays a pivotal role in facilitating economic activity and supporting the city's tax base. The insurance industry invests less in innovation than almost every other sector, and where they do innovation, it is often focused at protecting their own balance sheets. And because they have one-year contracts, unlike long-term mortgages, they have the ability to increase prices and exit markets, and you're seeing them do that across the country. Vulnerable cities like Boston should recognize that insurance access and affordability and uptake are not a given, and should incorporate a insurability planning focus in all the amazing work that the last panel talked about. Insurability of the city is part of the resilience strategy, or should be. Chief Sweat talked very eloquently about adaptation investments don't automatically guarantee stable insurance markets, or that those investments are captured in the insurance markets. Insurability is fundamentally different than resilience. Factors like capital availability, corporate risk appetites, demand for risk capital in the rest of the country, the rest of the world even, and in the use of advanced models. We heard the last committee talking about how they use models to do planning. The insurance industry also use models. There is often difficulty translating kind of the different models that are being used, all of those which can cause insurability crisis. The good news is that city leaders who are driving a bold adaptation agenda, like we heard from the last panel, are very well positioned to shape insurance markets and drive the insurance innovation that will help capture the value of all the adaptation investments that we heard for the last 2 hours. There are many, many levers to drive insurance innovation beyond federal programs like NFIP that will reimagine how insurance is being delivered. New products like microinsurance and parametric insurance can fill some gaps. There are also innovative methods for distributing catastrophe insurance that aren't being used. Things like group purchase of catastrophe insurance by employers, even by the city of Boston. There are also a need for innovative capital stacks that are public and private and that can fund losses over long periods of time, and legal structures like reciprocals and mutuals that collectively products, distribution, and new capital stacks can really reimagine insurance and focus the delivery of insurance on the needs of the community, not just who can afford insurance. Insurance innovation is going to happen. This might be led by the federal government. It might be led by the industry corporates. It might just happen because of climate change. We believe strongly that a locally led innovation initiative focused on insurance will make the city more resilient. It will also create the jobs, the insurance industry of the future. And Insure is solely focused on these things. And we are from Boston, we are located in Boston, and we would like nothing more than have Boston to be the center for insurance innovation related to these climate issues. And Boston is an amazing city. It's probably the best city in the world for just innovation in general. And we would like to find ways to partner with the city and all the other nonprofits and anybody else interested in making that happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlie, and thank you all so much for your testimony. I will now go to my colleagues if they have any questions for you, and then go to public testimony. Councilor Fitzgerald, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you all for taking your time to be here and advocate. It seems like the common theme amongst everyone was about how this is all coordinated on a mass scale, right? With all the different departments and things like that. I know you guys all spoke to the need, and I can't synthesize it all at the moment, but if anyone could try and give me one suggestion of how that could better work, or just for the folks that are in the room now that are sort of some of the leaders in these fields, and things that you may say have worked in the past or haven't worked in the past, or concerns you might have going forward, or gaps that you might see in connection of different departments, anything of that sort. But I'm really putting it on you guys to come up with an answer.
It's a really good and important question, Councilor Fitzgerald, and I can say firsthand that the worst time for agencies to be getting to know each other is after a disaster. I've seen that happen before, and so the very fact that you have a team like you had today sitting at the table together, where you had people responsible for long-term climate resilience planning and immediate emergency management already well linked up. I know from my time at the city, there's a monthly cross-agency climate resilience task force. I started it in 2019 that meets every month to actually do exactly that, to cross the different channels and make sure that there's no silos going on. And so the very fact that you have that happening now, I think is a really, really good and important step. And I think everybody has kind of articulated this too, that connection to our teams, to our network of nonprofits and advocates, and directly to the community is just as important. And I see that happening really well also.
Yeah, I think another area of connection that's really important that I can't remember if it was Brian or Chris who mentioned is the collaboration between the city and the state. Because of this multi-billion-dollar price tag that we're talking about, it really takes not just matrix management within the city on those capital needs and those huge dollars, but it's going to take, I think, integration between the state and the municipal government as well. And so, but I think with the team that you have here, that we have here, and that the work that the city has begun to really lead on, I think the potential is there to do that in some really exciting ways that I don't think we've done historically.
Yeah, I think you already talked about this collaboration across traditional boundaries, which is super important. Along with that, I think there needs to be quite a build of capacity building. I know most people don't really understand the nuances of insurance, and then people in the insurance sector often don't understand the engineering or the, especially around like things like nature-based solutions. So there's a lot of capacity building needs to happen with those conversations that are happening across the traditional boundaries.
You can certainly put me in the category of someone who does not understand insurance. That is all I have. I thank you guys for all your advocacy. Thank you for working with the folks from the city. Thank you for working with the folks of the state and every other department and entity that is in this very complicated but essential matter in terms of us just being able to still walk around here in the future, right? So thank you all.
Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. Councilor Murphy?
Thank you for being here and staying through the first panel, which you've said was a great panel talking about working together. And I often think of these nonprofits, like you're the warriors, the activists, you care, and whatever the topic is, if it's homelessness, but in this case, climate change, we need for real change to happen, right? And for this to work, we need people like you who know more than most about the issue and share that with us. And what I've seen since I've been on the council, and I'll highlight the Wharf District Council, I've been to many of their meetings, or when they talk about it, what I get from it is they understand the impact. They, as a group, care about their personal property, but that's not all they care about. They care about the whole coast. They care about what impact it will have on the whole city if and when this does happen. But what can they do? And then it was brought up earlier, and it talks to the fact that, along all of those miles of coast, we have, a private home, we have a public building, we have all these different entities along the coast. So you can invest, and if you're able to, millions in some, flood protection. But if your next door neighbor can't or chooses not to, because that's another question I have with the insurance, like playing devil's advocate, what if someone, is holding out just because then will we step in and do it? And then how do we reimburse those who stepped up and did it themselves? I mean, it's many questions at once there, but, and that idea obviously of like pay now or pay more later, right? So the insurance is great, but like you highlighted, most people don't know or maybe have the, the finances to invest in insurance, and insurance is going to be needed when the catastrophe happens, right? So all of the front end that we are talking about, but it's very possible before we get to that 10-year, plan that there is a storm that wipes out a lot of our coastline. So if you could just touch on any of those thoughts I had, no specific question, but thank you for your continued advocacy and working with not just the government agencies, but the neighborhood associations that care so much about, like I said, their spot, but the whole bigger picture.
Yeah, I think that there was a really interesting meeting of the Wharf District Council the other day, talking about using them as an example and to be able to extrapolate the work that's happening in that one particular region all the way around the harbor. I think one of the things that we all work on in the nonprofit side and the public sector works on, and the previous panel brought it up, is this whole issue of community engagement, educating the citizens, getting everybody aware and ready. And one of the things that I think Gigi mentioned in opening the session in the last few days since the storm and the impacts on Asheville, I've had so many people walk up to me and say, Kath, I know you work in climate. and we know that it could be us. So we've already, I think the city's done a phenomenal job under the leadership early on of previous mayors and the Green Ribbon Commission and other things of beginning to create a level of awareness. We know that in order to survive, to address effectively what's coming, including the more alternative solutions like nature-based, we need to continue to educate and build that awareness and ownership so that when our cell phone system dies and our emergency system, that the people know, they know what's happening, why it's happening, and what to do. That social resiliency, I think the nonprofits in conjunction with the public agencies are really, really critical, and I don't think we talk about it nearly enough, but I think we're all working on it.
Thank you.
I just have a few comments. The questions you raise are certainly like a lot of the hardest questions that will be require kind of iterations to answer over time. One of the things that we believe and that we are working on is how can I work with actuaries a lot and very complicated models that everyday people can't and shouldn't be expected to understand. But a lot of these things can be boiled down into what we like to think of as this total cost of risk. That is the cost of investments in adaptation, the cost of investments in risk transfer, the cost of recovery. And there's always trade-offs. You invest here, there's benefits here. And we think there are ways to communicate kind of in a scenario-based way to say, here's a do-nothing scenario, here's if you invest in adaptation, here's if you invest in risk transfer, and present this in kind of simple numbers that say, this is the benefits over time, this is how, and there's basically two things we focus on that we think are important is adaptation is bending the cost curve down, which is crucial. You can't do anything without bending that cost curve. But you can't also let the bottom piece be a large uninsured where they're just going to get hit with a huge bill at some point. So closing the protection gap is part of or figuring out how you are funding kind of the impacts that are inevitably going to come through. But we want to kind of boil that total cost and the trade-offs down into like one or two numbers that then can be incorporated into like other dashboards that are used by policymakers, but even individuals. Madam Chair talked about we have to be conscious of the cost of the home adaptations that kind of flow through to individuals. Those should be paired with like some sort of benefits in current insurance markets, which was, Chief Sweat was talking about that. So it's not just an innovation challenge, but it's also a communication challenge to everybody who's making a decision along the way.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. I do appreciate everybody bringing up the Wharf District Council. I was really grateful to have Mark Margulis, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, at the working session last November where he was able to talk about his work and the funding that he got from the state thanks to Ways and Means Chairman Aaron Michaelwitz, and a similar model being used at the North End Climate Alliance headed by Cheryl Del Greco, who was also invited here today but couldn't make it. And then similar to that, Jill Horwood Valdez, who is the Boston Waterfront Initiative director from the Barr Foundation, was also invited here today, was going to give testimony but could not make it due to bereavement. So my heart goes out to her, and I want to thank her for her work and her leadership in this space and in the philanthropic space as well. A couple questions and just gratitude again for you all for being here and your work day in and day out. Thank you for the recommendation on the climate dashboard coming from CLF just to track progress of climate ready implementation. Those things are good for us to know and understand, seeing that as counselors on any given day we are experts on climate resilience, education, mental health and substance use, transportation. So we don't know what we don't know, and so I appreciate those recommendations. My ask to all of you, I guess, seeing that we need to depend on all of you for your expertise. When can we loop you in, right? When there is something happening in our district, and I know that when I want to analyze the merits of large-scale engineering, as I did with Flatley in Charlestown, I went to Stone Living Lab, and I was like, can you double-check their work, and please tell me if this is actually going to protect Sullivan Square. As counselors, when can we come to you when there's a development project or anything happening in our district? And then on the flip side, just asking you to come to us too, engage with us and let us know what you're doing in our district so that we understand how to best utilize your expertise. So I guess that's a broad question for all of you. When can we come to you to utilize your subject matter area expertise in climate resilience?
Anytime. I mean, I think everybody knows that. I mean, Boston Harbor Now, we spend a lot of time reviewing development projects and trying to address issues of accessibility and resiliency in the course of responding to those. But we're doing that constantly and happy to do that in conjunction with you or in response to specific questions that you have. Would welcome that, really. And I think, we are a regional organization like Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, and CLF. So we work through local neighborhood organizations to connect with folks locally, but are always happy and are always looking for opportunities to do that and to do that well. And we're wrapping up a new strategic plan and have been talking to a lot of those organizations, and they see a real need because of the fact that this is a regional issue. It goes beyond parcel by parcel and even neighborhood by neighborhood. So I think pulling us in at any time that you feel that larger perspective is needed, or that we might have additional information that you don't have at your fingertips locally, we will be there. Thank you.
Agreed with Kathy.
Yeah, I would say early and often. I think, as you have so nicely pointed out, none of us are experts in every single facet that is required to get this done. And so the more we can engage with each other and share our expertise, the better equipped I think we'll be able to address emerging situations. And these will be emerging situations, right? We'll be dealing with unforeseen events happening. I mean, it's predictable that they will happen, but exactly when is uncertain. So as we can have nice timelines for what we're going to address in the near term, in the midterm, and the long term, our timelines may get upended by nature. So the more we can kind of get familiar with each other's expertise, the better.
Excellent.
Yeah, I wanted to add to the question, when should you reach out? I think right now is a great time. I have my business cards I'd be happy to give you. And I think just to your point about keeping each other all in the loop, I think it's a really good kind of action item for us to make sure that we're sending kind of everything that's going on in your district. So, we can connect with the neighborhood and community partners we have there. And I don't think there's ever a time when that's not going to help us in the long term. So appreciate that question and excited to work with you moving forward.
Awesome.
I would just add, I would say, agree with everything people said. Early and often is great. We specifically are looking for adaptation projects that are in the pipeline that are calculating some sort of risk-reducing benefit that maybe aren't being captured in the insurance industry, and we are trying to create projects that challenge the industry, both corporates and startup insurance innovators, to find ways to capture the value. So we're very interested in what is the pipeline of adaptation projects.
Carl, you turned your video on. Would you like to provide
Yes. Hi. So from the Mystic River Watershed's perspective, certainly from the grass tops, staying involved in our Resilient Mystic collaborative effort at a staff level would be fantastic. And share learnings between each other, not just using the expertise or the work of Myra. And then from the grassroots level, right, continuing to engage with our amazing community organizer, Mr. Zampino, and also our community educators to make sure that education and engagement remains to be at the forefront of this effort and this work. It's stuff that we love to do each and every day and brings us the most joy. So, it's great having, your Charlestown liaison, Elaine, at a ribbon cutting for a heat proofing project that we have going on in the Little Mystic Channel right now. Slightly separate topic, but I think just a testament to the level of collaboration and continuing to be a resource. Look forward to doing so.
Thank you, Carl. And I think that leads me to my next question, talking about community involvement, centering folks who are going to be most impacted and engaging them from the very beginning is a question that Chris and I were discussing yesterday in preparation for this hearing. How do we get this information out there? How do we let folks know that are in the flood zone, that are in basement level units, that maybe work 2 or 3 jobs, they work an overnight shift, they can't make it to a tabling event, or they don't necessarily know about it? What can the city, state, and I guess federal government be doing better to engage these communities? Do you have any tips or tricks, especially for those in the community engagement and involvement space?
I'd say, multiple channels is always important. Building networks of social resilience, just like it's important for these city agencies to be connected before a major event like they are, it's so important to have that network of community social resilience in place before those events too. Following Hurricane Sandy, the individuals that fared best were often the ones that had those strong, social resilience networks, and they were able to sleep on their grandmother's couch on a higher part of Staten Island or Queens, for 2 weeks. So those things really make a difference, and I think the city is already doing it in really fantastic ways, in multiple languages and multiple times of day. But yeah, sort of always thinking about multiple channels and various approaches.
We just issued the Fort Point report based on a really deep piece of community engagement work that we did a couple of years ago with the BSA and the BSLA, with the Fort Point Neighborhood Association, and with the city. And it was a really good example of getting people genuinely involved and over time, and really giving people an opportunity to have input and to see that input take some shape. And the city, I think, is planning to use some of that model and some of that work now across the city and other neighborhoods as well, which is really exciting to see. So I think we're getting better at it.
Great. I think I have two questions. I'll go to Charlie first. You had mentioned the idea of group buying in catastrophic insurance at the municipal level. That sounds fascinating. Can you just talk to me a little bit about that? Because right now the city is involved in community choice energy, which is a large bulk buy, and so it's interesting to hear it maybe from a climate resilience aspect and insurance. And I'm with Councilor Fitzgerald. I don't know anything about insurance. Well, not nothing, but can you just elaborate on that? Because that was a fascinating point I wanted you to dive deeper into.
Yeah, we believe that group purchase of insurance is one way. People often look to the regulatory regime of how insurance is regulated to capture, force discounts to happen. But another way is, group purchase provides kind of the buying power leverage of the entity doing the group purchase, and you can back that up with different types of risk pooling that can help both capture, the value of the investments in adaptation, but also translate kind of what I heard this morning was a community-wide effort to make the city of Boston more resilient. That doesn't translate to in the insurance industry as kind of selling products, because they don't insure the city of Boston over long periods of time. They insure one location for 1 year. So their whole kind of mental, map is completely different than the approach. But group purchase of insurance, you can use the buying power of the city, but it could also be like large employers saying, hey, we're going to buy catastrophe insurance. And it could start with like micro insurance for renters that really addresses a vulnerable population with a little bit of insurance that really makes a difference in their lives, but isn't potentially a huge market that people are going after. Some startups are doing things, but you can leverage the kind of buying power to just like, you hear Medicare, they're buying insulin in bulk, it drives the price down. And you can do that with insurance and catastrophe insurance in particular.
Thank you. That I have about 1 million more questions, but we can take this offline.
Yeah.
And thank you for elaborating on that. I always like to start on a high note and end on a high note. And so we're talking about a lot of heavy topics here, right? The climate crisis, the catastrophic effects of all of that, Hurricane Helene, but really grateful for the intentionality and centering folks who are going to be most impacted from all of your organizations. And from a personal standpoint, everybody here, I know that is the equity lens that you bring to this work. So just thank you for that. Is there anything that anybody's hopeful for in the future through this work? It is, like I said, very heavy. And so that's why I want to end on a high note. If anybody could talk about glimmer of light throughout all of this as we try to combat against the effects of climate change.
I will just say, just from my personal, I've been in the insurance industry 35 plus years. There's never been the level of interest, which really has increased over the last 3 or 4 years, on these issues from the equity perspective and from people outside the industry. It's always been like a inside the industry kind of discussion, and it feels like over the last year or two, it has spilled over to how can we work together with like groups like these, and the fact that I'm here today. So I'm very hopeful.
I would echo that and just say, yeah, the level of collaboration and coordination and innovation and care that we're seeing in Boston every day. I think Boston is a real leader on climate resilience throughout the country and throughout the world, and hopefully, you know, the things that we do here are able to benefit not only this city and region, but other parts of the country and world as well.
And sort of building on that, I think you talked about where the hearing 2 years ago, and you look at what we were talking about and where we were 2 years ago, and you look at where we are now, and you look at this incredible group that's been assembled at the city level. We look at the incredible group that's been assembled at the state level, and all of us and the amount of work that we're all doing. It feels, and you compare that to other areas of the country and see what's happening. I do think that there's a lot of reason to have hope and for us to really be continuing to sort of set the standard and do the work and getting it done in time, we hope.
Thank you. Knock on wood. Carl, you put your video on. Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, you know, I think just like investing, it's very cliche, but investing in our future. I think Councilor Coletta Zapata, you mentioned earlier that one of the staff members from the Office of Climate Resiliency was from BLA. So like investing in educational programming for youth to learn about these items early and often is the best way to prepare ourselves from a staffing perspective and making sure we have the expertise to get this done. So I think it's very optimistic, and I think investing in education is really key.
Awesome. And I want to invite everybody to our a future conversation about environmental justice and climate change science curriculum in BPS that I help sponsor to try to get the youth involved and interested in this, because they will ultimately save us from ourselves and will be the stewards of this land and hopefully come up with some of the innovative solutions that we implement moving forward. So everyone's invited to that conversation. It's TBD right now. I want to thank you all again for your time and your work. You all are dismissed, I guess, for lack of a better term. We do have some folks that want to provide public testimony, and if you just use this to sign up, just let me know, just wave me off. But if you'd like to come forward and provide public testimony, you are more than welcome. We have David Lopez signed up, Mike Travis, I think from the Boston Children's Museum, even though I think they left. Catherine Radford from Friends of Doherty Park, Boston Children's Museum left, and Zoe. And then also Chris Mancini from Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, but you're good. Okay, and Sarah McCammond from the Harborfront Alliance. Based on that, does anybody want to provide testimony? Okay. I think we have Sarah McCammond coming and Chris Mancini potentially. Oh, you can you can use that one. Yeah, I apologize. You weren't here for that, Chris.
I missed that.
Just state your name and your organization.
Hi, Chris Mancini, Save the Harbor, Save the Bay. I'm the executive director. I wasn't going to say anything, but I just thought I'd answer your last question. You know, the thing that gives me a glimmer of hope was actually this hearing. And whenever I start to kind of stress about how big this issue is, like I'm going to think back to the slide from the presentation. It was the most simple slide. It was a white slide with 3 lines of black text. And it was, what do we do immediately? What do we do over the next couple years? And what do we do long term? And reorganizing this department, you know, we called for, you know, this statewide agency, an MWRA-style agency. I mean, it kind of feels like you've almost done it here in the city. Boston's been a leader on this. You're continuing to be a leader. It's like, that's like all but done. You know, we're missing the state, but that's how it's so gratifying to show up at a hearing and hear the words spoken by the advocates and other staff members over the years, you know, reflected in the actions and in the words on the panel. So, the city is leading. They're not putting everything, you're not going parcel by parcel, you're making those cross collaborations. It's just really exciting, and it's a big issue, and it freaks us all out. And that slide's going to be stuck in my head going, okay, they've got a system, and you've got really smart people working on it. So we're excited to partner however we can and help out, because we all care about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Sarah?
Sure, thank you. I hope I read my scribble that I wrote down. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Sarah McCammond. I'm the Executive Director of the Harborfront Neighborhood Alliance, and I'm also part of the Fort Point Neighborhood Association. Again, Councilor Coletta Zapata and Councilor Fitzgerald, thank you for co-sponsoring this really important, critical docket. I want to thank Councilor Flynn and Councilor Murphy and City Council President Louis Jean for also being a part of the hearing. The Harborfront Neighborhood Alliance brings together neighborhood associations around the Boston Harbor, and we represent residents and raising their voices about development and sustainability of the waterfront. And our residents are in districts 1, 2, and 3. And so this is such a wonderful convening today. And I just wanted to say that obviously being part of neighborhoods that live on and by water, climate resilience, and coastal adaptation is just critical to our survival, as you all know so well. And we're at a pivotal point here. We now have a Chief Climate Officer of the city. We have the Office of Climate Resilience, and we have this time when everything's coming together, and you brought together a panel that is addressing pieces that weren't in the first climate-ready plans, and with that, I'm particularly thinking of stormwater management, and then the emergency management responses, and to have this whole group here together from the administration, the community partners, just feeling very blessed that we are able to work with both the administration, community partners, and yourselves to tackle this issue. And although I'm very excited, and I think what's happening also in the Driscoll administration, CZM, Coastal Zone Management, coming out with Massachusetts Resilient Coasts, all these initiatives, again, are coming together at a really critical time. And so I think it's an exciting time, but it's also an urgent time. The early milestones in Climate Ready were 2025. That's next year. We have a big deadline of 2030, and for some of us, 2070 will be here right before we know it. For other of us, maybe not. But I don't want to forget that sense of urgency, and just looking forward to understanding a little bit more about, as we look at a lot of these large development projects that have already been approved, Dorchester Bay City, 425 Medford, you have the Channelside project, you have in planning the Reserve Channel, 42 acres, you have the Gillette that's just starting their visioning for 31 acres. These are all waterfront projects, and I think we're in a position and where we're probably a lot smarter about what we need to be doing in terms of meeting the city's needs for mixed-use development, but also resiliency and protecting those by the water and those right beyond the water in the inner neighborhoods and downstream. So lots going on, and as part of the Harborfront Neighborhood Alliance, we look forward to working with you all. And just want to say this is urgent. We need to be doing this, and thank you again for this hearing today.
Thank you so much for your partnership, Sarah, and for your convening power and bringing everybody together. It's so important. So thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm checking in with Shane for anybody online. Do we have Bud Reith Here? No? Okay. All right, I think that concludes this hearing. I know that I, for one, am ready to eat something, so I appreciate everyone's patience, and thank you for being here. It's been 3 hours. Shout out to the team for being here and listening to us. This will stay in committee, and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.